It's time for Mac Break Weekly. Alex, Andy, and Jason Snell are all here. Lots to talk about. Yes, believe it or not. The new versions of all the Apple operating systems are out now, the final betas before the next releases. There's also a big security update everybody should get. A zero-click flaw in messages has been patched. We'll talk about the rumors, including a new iMac with a bigger than 30-inch display. The visionOS SDK is out, some of the new features in the Vision Pro headset, and Apple loses in the Supreme Court. It's all coming up next on Mac Break Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Mac Break Weekly, episode 876, recorded Tuesday, June 27th, 2023. Mediocre Tuesday. This episode of Mac Break Weekly is brought to you by ACI Learning. IT skills are outdated in about 18 months. Stay ahead of the curve and future-proof your business competitiveness with customizable, entertaining training. Fill out the form at go.acilearning.com/twit for more information on a free 2-week training trial for your team. And by AG1. Take ownership of your health with a simpler, effective investment with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase of a subscription. Go to drinkag1.com/MacBreak. It's time for Mac Break Weekly, the show where we cover the latest Mac news, of which there is precious little. Jason Snell's back. How was graduation? Your kid is now a professional something.
It worked. She graduated.
Yay.
Yeah,
Yay.
it's great.
Nice.
It's great. We had a good time.
We missed
they
you.
just happened to counter-schedule us with Mac Break Weekly. I think that was the university's plan all along.
It gave us a chance to get James Thompson on. It was great to have him on, catch up with him, and talk about, as a developer, what he sees coming down the pipe with iOS 17 and Mac OS Sonoma. Also with us, Mr. Andy Anako, WGBH Boston. Hello, Andrew.
Hey there, Heather. Ho there.
That's all we have to say. No questions.
It's humid. It's a humid Tuesday here in New
humid.
England.
I heard that it's pretty warm out there. Yes.
I'm wearing a shirt, and I think that shows an admirable level of commitment.
You're
to
brave,
professionalism.
brave man. Actually, I really like your color coordination. Andy is wearing a gray shirt. It's about, I'd say 30% gray, a black tee, and a black logoless hat that matches his Sony headphones.
No, I was a little embarrassed last week. So I was in town I was in Boston. We're doing GBH in the studio, and so I had like a nice shirt on and a tie and a little thing thrown over that. But then it was hot, so I took those off, and then I realized that I was wearing like black sneakers, black pants, a black T-shirt.
Oh Lord!
And like, oh dear, Reverend Andy is enjoying the summer in Boston, isn't he?
On the radio, no one knows you're a priest. It's good.
I try not to let that happen.
I would say Ninja Andy instead. And also with us, Alex Lindsay. We had a good dose of Alice on Sunday on Twit. If you haven't heard it, he was fantastic. Great to have you back.
Fun conversation
in your regular seat. Yeah, it was a good show. Really enjoyed it. It was also almost a record holder, 3 hours. We had Jason Del Rey on, who wrote a book, really interesting book called Winner Sells All, about Amazon versus Walmart. And a lot of really interesting stuff about Walmart, among other things. Anyway, fun conversation. If you didn't get it here at Twit 933, tune in for more Alex. But Alex is here today to talk Apple, as we all are. Just as we went to press. I say that for you, Jason, since you're the old print guy.
Breaking news, everybody.
Press.
Stop the presses.
Beta versions.
Copy boy, stand by.
Now listen here, I got a new headline for page 1. Are you ready? Get the copy boy in here.
It's straight on the front page here. Appleseed's 4th beta of macOS Ventura 13.5, 4th betas of 16.6 iOS, 16.6 iPadOS, tvOS updated. I have an Apple TV in my office I don't use very much, so I turned it on and it was acting kind of funky. It was still on version 14, so I updated it all the way to 16, which took the rest of the day. You can update again if you are on the beta. And I did turn on the beta. Beta on tvOS seems a fairly minor thing. watchOS, fourth beta of 9.6. All of this sounds like new versions are coming imminently, right? How many betas do they do of a version? 4 seems like the limit.
Yeah, and this is a cleanup, right? This is probably the last cleanup of the existing OS versions before they, put them off on the ice flow. But yeah, it seems like it's close now.
It's kind of pathetic. There goes Ventura floating away on the ice flow. Yeah, because Sonoma's coming.
Yeah, that's right.
We are, I think, the #1 Apple podcast in Sonoma County. So
I hope so.
I think we're the only, probably.
I imagine if like macOS Ken drops in and is like, "Ha! I gotcha!
Damn it!
I'm where you live! Damn
it!" Anything to say about these betas? They're cleanups. They don't add features or turn things on or anything like that.
Yeah, I imagine it's either things that they have to flip a switch or make some very slight adjustments or bring things to a gentle resting place. Not that they won't update them further, but those updates are going to increasingly be about like emergency bug fixes and security updates because they're pretty much parked, right? Like everybody at Apple has really been working on the new OS versions for 6 months now, and now they're in crunch time. So
the other thing that happened since I left to go to Disneyland and VidCon. What a combo. VidCon was actually had more characters than more people in costume than Disneyland did, which is saying something. Although I should have taken a picture of it. They have a big poster right outside of VidCon, which is the convention for video creators, TikTokers, YouTubers, like that. They have a big cosplay rules thing. You can't bring a stick. You can't hide your face. There are all these cosplay rules. I don't know if that's normal now at Comic-Con and stuff.
Pretty much.
Is it? It's for safety, right?
The anime cosplayers often have these, like, I'm not joking, like 6 foot long, like swords that they carry over their shoulders. Yeah. And after 2 hours, they're not really paying attention to what happens when they turn. And so they had to be, there's all kinds of rules on length of weapons, length of props, also fake anything that could be mistaken for an actual weapon or used as an actual weapon. You have some people who are like, who are smart enough to say, hey, I got this beautiful, like, antique sword that makes my pirate costume look great. Yeah, you're bringing like a 3 foot long edged weapon into a public space. Maybe that's not a good thing.
Yeah, I didn't mind.
It'll be here with your coat when you come back out.
I didn't mind. There were still plenty of people in costume. It turns out, though, I didn't. The VidCon, which was at the Anaheim Convention Center, we were there because Lisa was on a panel, which was great. She did a great job. But it turns out that wasn't the place to be at VidCon. The Hyatt Hotel, which was several blocks away, was where all the creators, they didn't even bother going to the show. All the creators were hanging out at the hotel. Fantastic. The CEO of TikTok came, but he didn't come to the convention. He went to the Hyatt and hung out at a hospitality suite there. So
it's all about the collabs, baby. The collabs.
Yeah, I felt so old and out of... I mean, I was an influencer back when influencers were made out of wood and stone. To see, I mean, it's really interesting. And what's interesting how niche it is now, which is good. I mean, we're niche, obviously.
What's also interesting is that some of them might be they're only 28 years old or 30 years old, but they've been doing it almost as long as we have.
I know.
Like a lot of them, they started when they were 8 or 10 or 12. They started very early.
Although the big guys, Mr. Beast didn't go. The big Marquez Brownlee didn't go because this was a scheduling error. Who would have thought? Cannes Lion, which is in France, is the big upfront for streaming video. All of these big shots were, including Emma Chamberlain, and were in France because it conflicted with VidCon. What a dumb idea to have VidCon the same week as. But I guess I'm betting nobody at VidCon scheduling this 2 years ago thought Cannes Lion. Why would anybody?
I think there was actually another VidCon at the same time as VidCon. And there was like another, I think, a VidCon in Baltimore or something or near it.
It's gotten too big. It's gotten too big. Anyway, I quite enjoyed both that and Disneyland. But that's not what we're here to talk about. One of the things that happened, I was starting to say and didn't finish the sentence while I was gone, is the Vision Pro SDK, the software development kit, came out, which means we learned some things, right? The visionOS SDK.
A lot of people now that people have the ability to actually run visionOS inside the simulator, they're learning things like, oh wow, there's actually spotlight search in here, and wow, here's what the keyboard actually like works and looks like. And we're finding out a whole bunch of other tidbits, like a couple separate stories about how, like, okay, so now that the Vision Pro will stop working if you are in motion to a certain degree to prevent people, I don't know, from like using it while driving or operating a vehicle. There's a safety zone of something like 10 feet. Like when you're in a fully immersive environment, you're inside a box that's about 10 feet across to prevent you from, I don't know, wandering out a window or something like that. Lots of little details that we haven't been figuring out before.
But there is a traveling switch that you can flip. Says I'm on an airplane and I'm watching a movie. So they clear. We learn a lot about what I think some people. Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, but I got the sense from some people's social media posts that people who spent a lot of time working with ARKit were a little disappointed to see that a lot of the work that they had done would not be applicable to Vision Pro. Did I get that right?
Well, yes and no. So what I would say by that is that all the work that you do in these areas, ARKit may not line up as far as the code goes, but understanding how things work.
Oh, of course.
And understanding things that you have to think about. But that's, from a coding perspective, that's, in my opinion, a lot more important, is the understanding of how to interact with things. Writing the code is going to be a little bit more work, but I think that you also don't want them to be trying to figure out how to be backward compatible with something they thought was going to work 3 years ago.
Exactly.
So I think, but I think that what I've learned over, doing a lot of immersive work over the last, 25 years, is that doing a lot of it means that you understand what you should do next. And the coding stuff, or for us, the shooting the footage or building the footage, you can start thinking in that terms, and that has been far more useful than learning any individual tool or process.
Did you get to play with Reality Composer Pro, which was also released with the SDK?
I haven't played with it yet. I have watched a lot of videos on it, and we're going to be doing some stuff in office hours with it. We're going to have some labs where we really dig into it. It's really powerful. And watching the videos has me really excited about it. Probably the best, I think I mentioned it before, probably the best nodal system that I've ever seen. Just
no kidding.
Pure pretty. It is like a lot of these that we use are fairly functional, but no one really thinks about how only Apple would worry about exactly how the little nodes are connected and exactly, how everything gets fit together. So on that, I'm sure that's just as functional as Unreal Engine or any of the other ones. It's functional, but it looks nice. As someone who used to have to design those nodes, I immediately opened it up and I was like, oh, that's. I wish I had thought of that. That looks really nice. So
it is. So the idea is you can import your 3D stuff.
You can set up a lot of functions
into Xcode, right?
Yeah, you can set up a lot of functions that you're going to hand back to Xcode. So basically, in Reality Composer, you're able to build your scenes. That would be really arduous to do with your code, and so you can build out the scenes and things that need to be triggered. But those can all be kind of put together and visualized, and and kind of worked out inside of this environment. And it's got adding surfaces and particle systems and lighting and working with the models and placing them in place. And all of that can be set up inside of this environment. And it's what's missing in a lot of the other immersive environments was really good tools to kind of put that together that aren't just Unreal and Unity.
Right. And it'll import USDZ and other assets, and then working with Xcode to make it a program with these assets.
Right. So it's got all the hooks in there. So you're basically building something that has hooks available that you're going to be able to call from Xcode.
Yeah. Okay. So we got our first look at that.
It's but the weird thing is going to be that people, all these developers are going to be writing really cool apps that will work for this simulator, but it's going to be at least a year before they figure out Is this going to have they placed objects too close to the viewport, too far away from the viewport? How comfortable is this app going to be to use for more than 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours? And it's still one of the big unanswered questions of the Vision Pro is how long is anybody going to be able to use this given the limits of VR as they've implemented them?
I don't know. I mean, some of the developers will get units, right? Like everything we're hearing is that next month they're going to have these developer kitchens basically in 6 major cities where people can come who are developers and use it. And then they've been upfront and saying that they're going to open, the ability to get a developer unit, and you're going to have to apply, and you're going to have to, it's obviously going to be limited. In fact, I think the phrase they use is your team, which implies that like maybe James Thompson need not apply. I don't know. But
he's a solo developer.
But what I've heard is that the hardware is pretty final, and that the reason that it's not shipping is twofold. One, they can't make enough of them. And two, the software is not all there yet. But if the hardware is pretty final, then the developer kits will probably be pretty real. And so developers may, in fact, be the first people outside of Apple to have a realization about how long can they go using this thing. Now, that's not the whole wide world, and the developer pool, is not as diverse as the whole wide world, even the whole wide world of purchasers of this product. But I feel like we're going to start getting a sense. If they're NDA'd, it'll be through the grapevine. But I think we'll start getting a sense later this year from developers and other people who've used it, who are actually able to sit there for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours and say either it's fine or it's terrible, and we'll have a better idea.
I did hear some complaint from the open source community that Apple's tools, SwiftUI, Reality Kit, AR Kit, Reality Composer Pro are all proprietary. And there exist analogs in the open source world. I'm sure, Alex, you have a rebuttal to that.
I don't think Apple cares. Like, this is
and nor do I, right?
Nailed it.
I don't think
give these away for free, right?
I mean, the bottom line is that trying to, like, in open source, now you have the GNU license that is a huge problem if you start building the apps that you want to sell. And so having, incorporating like everything that every large company that I work for, I have to sign a contract that says I will not use any open source software. Like, it is literally like in every contract, you'll do all this other stuff and you will not use any open source software in any part of the development of doing this because of the way the licensing works. And so they don't want to have any, most for-profit companies don't want to have any part of using anything with an open source license. And so sure, but that and Apple is going to build something that's going to work on their platform, and they're not worried about they're not really worried about interoperability except for Unity. And that allows them to innovate and move as fast as they want to move. This is a brand new thing. Why would they tie themselves into the past?
Yeah,
I don't see any upside for them.
Yeah. I just wanted to give you the chance to say that.
Yeah.
Exactly. on the other hand, at least there was some report I think put in the show notes that it's going to support like 3D web technology. So at least it's not
WebXR.
that.
Yeah.
WebXR.
What is WebXR? Is that a Pixar standard?
No. So what's interesting is, and what you can always see from a company when they do this is that they are. A company wants to control everything that makes them different and commoditize anything that is just a cost of production. And so,
by the way,
is something
if you have your highlighter with you, underline that sentence that you just said, because that is really a fundamental concept in all of this. Say it again, Alex.
So any company, all the companies, they want to control the things that make them different. So they want absolute control over those, and they want to commoditize anything that increases their cost of production or makes it harder that they're not going to do. And so you can tell when a company wants things to be open source, when Apple wants to make things open source, that's something they want to commoditize.
They want to let somebody else do the work, and because it's not a differentiator, it doesn't help the platform.
And it also, it's not going to be something that they care about in the future. So like HLS, they created HLS,
right,
and they made it widely available because they need to be able to stream to those things, and they want everybody to use it. And so we'll make it free and make it easy for everybody to use. And when I say open source, I mean they may open source it or they may make it just free, but they're going to, they don't want a lot. What Apple didn't want is a lot of other formats streaming out, so because then they have to support them. And so by having one that is really good, and even now we have to think about it, HLS and Dash and so on and so forth. And so anyway, the so you'll see the WebAR, WebXR. I think it's most of the things, WebXR tools are part of that. Also, they're not like Apple is. They're streaming. They're doing the streaming is the MVHEVC. So that is but that's a standard, and that standard's been around since I think 2015. Although not a lot of people have used it because just as that standard came out, 3D kind of fell. The bottom fell out of 3D at the time. 3D just keeps on coming up. Like every couple of years, we go, like right now, there's this huge rush. All of us are trying to find 3D rigs. Those camera rigs that we were using for all those 3D films. Suddenly, everyone's trying to who's got the rigs? Like there's warehouses of people that have fortunately kept a couple of rigs that were all.
Yeah, we were talking about that. You have that. What is it? $30,000. Ozo
there's a
behind you.
I have a $60,000 Ozo right there. I don't even know if it'll work though. It's like I haven't turned it on for a long time. But but there's these big rigs that they use for film that were like $60,000 rigs, and now they're like $10,000. And then there's the Canon. I think I don't know. They must have known something was going to happen, but they have the R5C with a dual lens on it, and it can't stream. But a bunch of us. I was kind of surprised that Canon, when they came out, I was like, why are they releasing that camera? Now it makes more sense because that's going to be a great acquisition tool for the headset. So anyway, so there's a couple, a lot of us are trying to figure those things out, but the MV-HVEC format is basically give me a hero eye. So this is let's say my left eye is my hero eye. And then give me the second eye is going to be compressed into the hero eye. So that means that it saves space. You're not sending 2 whole frames to somebody for stereo. It only does the delta for the right eye if the left eye is hero. But if you only have 2D, if you're watching on your phone, you just see the left eye. And so those are the kind of things but that makes it, more efficient, in that process. And so that's the kind of thing, that's a standard, that's MPEG. It's not something that Apple's making up. And you can tell that Apple doesn't want to make up things that it wants everybody using so that it's easier for it to do, but it does want to control its code, on how you build it out.
And if they're supporting this in the web, that means that if in 5 years from now, as Alex keeps saying, the ability to see what this IKEA bookcase looks like in your house, it becomes a thing. It would be very, very much improved if you could do it through the web rather than, by the way, yes, want to see what this looks like in your living room? Download and install this app, which will only take X amount of time. I mean, if this does become a world standard, it's a very cheap way for Apple to make this, to take the advantages of a world that uses 3D in the web without actually having to commit to dumbing itself down to Meta's idea of 3D.
Yeah, by the way, like with Amazon, if you go through Amazon on your phone and you look at furniture, because I'm replacing something underneath my TV right now, whatever the thing is, it will say, "Hey, do you want to see this in your scene?" All you got to do is click on the little button and move your camera back and forth a little bit, and boom, it pops right into your living room. So that stuff is already, and a lot of people have been built. Amazon had a whole team in building that for quite some time. So that's been in the works for a couple of years, and it's already available on the phone. Obviously, it'll be more useful in the headset. But it also means that if you go to any web page supporting the web VR or AR or XR, those web pages, when you open them on a web page inside of your Apple, you can just click on it and rotate it around, and you'll see it in 3D. So it's going to be pretty. That makes, as Andy said, it makes it much easier for a lot of folks that don't believe in what Apple's doing to publish something that just happens to work on the headset.
Already, it's been out 6 days. There are already apps. iMore had a list of developers are already working on apps for Vision Pro. Here are 5 we love.
It's a gold rush.
It's a gold rush.
Yeah. Especially for the first ones that are out there. We don't know how well they'll work, but you have a bunch of people that spent at some point will have spent $3,500 and spending another $5 on an app or $10 on an app to see how it works, especially when a large number of them are developers and they're just trying to figure out what it works, how it works, and what it does. They're probably going to spend, so if you're one of those first apps that's being recommended, if you're one of the first apps that gets a little press, if it gets a little push, it's not like you're going to make $10. It's going to be millions, and I've talked to other developers that have done this in the past where they launch things right out of the gate and, they have a $250,000 week. Now they may not see anything after that, but it's like, a bunch of money came in. So I think that you're going to see a lot of that, a lot of people trying to be in that first tranche, and that first tranche will probably last about a year.
I bought a ton of stuff when I got that Quest Pro. Go ahead.
No, or at minimum to basically advertise to the world that, hey, look, I know how to program apps for this thing. Perhaps you should hire me for $250,000 and give me dental and medical care.
James Thompson was on a week ago. The next day, the SDK comes out. PCalc is already available.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he got it up and running as the iPad app, and then got it up and running in the simulator as a native app. But I would say a lot of the developers, especially the indie developers who are going to be showing up in these kinds of stories and are posting their things to social media, they are just really enthusiastic about being able to take their skills as an Apple platform developer to a new platform and figure out where it's applied. So I would say that the primary thing driving most of what I've seen is not like I want to be seen or it's a gold rush to just be noticed months before the product ships, right? There's not a lot of value there, but a lot of these people are like, oh, my app does X. Can that be a Vision Pro app? And exploring, and they're doing it in public, which I think is a lot of fun. But Steve Troughton-Smith, who does a streaming audio app called Broadcast, he showed me a video, it was on Mastodon, where he's taking his little player and I kept saying I want it to turn into a radio essentially that I can put anywhere. And he's got a minimized view of it that he's been working on where you can put it on a table in your kitchen, and then wherever you are, you can hear it playing in the kitchen, which is really cool. And I think there's a lot of enthusiasm right now among people who are already invested in these platforms, the Apple platforms, trying to figure out what their existing software does. I think that there will also be a wave of people writing new software, but this is that first little rush. It's like when the iPad came out, where it's oh, can I get it up and running on the iPad? And they're just enthusiastic about it.
Is it Catalyst?
It's early days.
Is it a Catalyst-like environment that they're using?
No, I think the iPad app, it's literally iPad app emulation. They're literally just running it just as you would on a Mac. You're running on the native iPad app unchanged, and then they make some changes and they do a build target for visionOS, and that gives you the frosted glass look and all of that, which is not there. You can tell when you're using an iPad app because it looks like an iPad.
So this is Troughton-Smith's broadcasts on the Vision Pro SDK.
Yeah.
And you can see that that big screen in the background, that's just the iPad app. And then he's popped out into a player into the 3D space. So that's cool. It's not what, it's not.
They're working on it.
They're working on it.
What I want is I want a 3D object. I want a thing that looks literally I can pull out a thing that looks like a radio and set it somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's my broadcast player, right? I'm intrigued by the idea of apps as physical objects. Since we're getting super skeuomorphic here, let's do it. I want to see if you're an audio player like Steve Troughton-Smith's broadcast, I would love to see literally a physical object I could set somewhere.
And when you work through the channels, it's kind of
sure. The more skeuomorphic, the better, I think.
That's interesting. It does. It calls for a skeuomorphism, doesn't it? As Apple has abandoned it, but.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's ever. I don't know if that's never really worked.
Is it transitional, we've had, Andy, or is it long term?
I think that everybody's going to have their chainsaw moment with this, where you get your first chainsaw, the first thing and everything you want to do in life is cut things with this chainsaw. And so I think that as people start to write their own virtual reality apps with Vision Pro, it's the natural thing is, wow, I've got a podcast player that should actually look like a radio, and I should be able to put it on top of any physical surface in the real world around me. But I think it's going to take a little while for everybody to kind of settle down and realize that that's cool. That's wonderful. That's a really great demo. It's not the most convenient way to access and to be using. I know you're really, really happy about the fact that you've used the virtual soundstage so that when you turn to the left or when you back away from the virtual radio, the placement of it and the sound field moves and the volume moves. But actually, I just want to be able to listen to it very, very clearly, no matter where my focus is.
Yeah, we don't know.
Remember that the Magic Cap, like that first like pre-Newton message pad control was completely skeuomorphic, where they used the paradigm of, hey, here is your house, here is your inbox tray on your desk, hey, look, let's go into the living room where you've got your radio. And again, it was a really cool demo, and it kind of made sense on some sort of Vulcan logic way. But then again, when you give people, or here is a menu with a list of 5 items, and you simply click on the one that you want to use, let's see how long people use the skeuomorphism beyond like the first week or two.
But the main thing is that what's important is to throw it up against the wall, because a lot of times there are so many things that I've been asked to do by someone who doesn't do what I do a lot. And I go, oh, that's never going to work. Like that is like we had one with Richard Branson, and he wanted to do things in the round. He wants to do these. He wants to do his conversation instead of on stage. And I was like, there was a lot of me going, hey, there's a reason there's a stage on one side and our cameras on the other. You're going to see our cameras. This is all not going to work. It's going to look totally chaotic. And I did it. We did it because, he was going to do what he's going to do. And, like he listened to us. And
billionaires always have the right of way.
And then we're going to do it this way. And the thing is that, and we did it. And now I won't do it any other way. Like it was so magical to have people in a round talking to each other, that we've slowly figured out how to make it way better than what we had done originally. But it was a beginner's mind. It was someone going in and going, I don't know. I know that you've always done it this way, but I want to do it some other way. And about 75% of the time, it's a horrible idea. And 25% of the time, I'm being kind. But 25% of the time, you end up with something magical that you didn't know. And so I think that the unknowing of it, and I think that's what people are in right now, is they're just going to throw things up like, what does this look like? And does the radio work? And does this thing go? And that's why it's so important for developers to get into it now and to have, because right now they're still going to figure out the architecture, like how do I tie in my Reality Composer Pro into those? So there's a whole bunch of subsystems that you have to figure out on how all those things are going to work inside the simulator, so that when you put the headset on, all those things, you know how to do all the other things. And now you're going into, I don't feel right, or I feel sick, or this is too high, or this is too low. And Apple, I will say, I'm kind of amazed. If you watch the WWC videos, the level of detail that Apple gives you around the design, like you want all your interfaces slightly below. I mean, with all things that we've said in the past, those of us who've done it, but I've never seen anyone put it in training of, you want your head to look just a little bit down at things rather than up, or you'll get tired. And there's a lot of these things that Apple has figured out for folks, at least to give them a guide of where to start. And so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an exciting time next year when the headset comes out.
That's really cool.
I would say,
Steve Troughton-Smith did this development in public, and you interacted with him in it. But he was posting on Mastodon as he discovered a feature. As he got an image, he would post, while I have a little downtime, I'm giving the tvOS app a look to see what I can port over. I actually really liked. Let me scroll down. Look at all these screenshots he put up. I really liked this one. This is a mini player kind of embedded on the desktop. Yeah. So this is close to what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And to Andy's point, I think he's right. Like, we don't know. We just don't know. Is this a novelty that will wear off? Or I think you could argue, are these two-dimensional planes in a 3D space going to be like, oh, what were we thinking? Two-dimensional planes. That's so old thinking, right? Like, I think the truth is somewhere in the middle, that there are going to be some uses for the spatial, and there are going to be some where it's irrelevant, and we're going to have to figure it out. But I love the idea that you've got some smart software developers who immediately are leaping in and saying, like, okay, what do I do with this? That is not literally just my iPad app floating in a two-dimensional window in space, right?
Well, because it's going to come down to whether people live in this or not. And I don't think generation 1 they're going to live in. Battery life isn't long enough for one thing, and you can't move around. Yeah. But in time, if they do get an AR spectacle of some kind where you're kind of wearing it all the time, you'll want these 3D images. You will want them to show up. Let's go in the kitchen. I have the radio there. I think that's a natural form of augmented reality. It's just the form factor for the Vision Pro doesn't lend itself to that, forever. But
right. Some of these developers, I think, are also thinking they're going to play a long game just like Apple.
Absolutely.
Right? First thing to do is just understand the language you're speaking and what the issues are, and then take your time and grow and learn from there.
Risky, because we don't know how long it's going to take to get there.
We don't know how long it's going to take, but we have a pretty good idea of how long Apple's going to work on it. And that's the distinction between Apple and Google, is that with Google, you're like, if this doesn't turn out in 6 months or a year, we don't know if it'll make it to the next I/O, or maybe it gets to one I/O and maybe not the second I/O, that kind of thing. And that's been a real problem that Google has had, which is this idea of just killing things off means that people have to put development time in. They don't know. With Apple, you're pretty sure that they've spent the last 6 or 7 years working on this. They're probably going to spend at least the next 5, kind of cranking through it. And I think that that's a distinction. Even things that were, probably didn't turn out well, like Final Cut 10 from a PR perspective, they're still with, 10 years later, or more than 10 years later. Right?
Yeah. That's what I'm waiting for. Hoping for. And if the Vision, as skeptical as I've been about the Vision Pro, it was of that particular form factor. If the Vision Pro continues to make progress, it's a good time. And Steve Troughton Smith is all in on Apple, right? So he's not going to go.
That's his skill set.
That's
he's
what he
an
does.
Apple platform developer.
Yeah.
So this is, why would you not? And James Thompson's the same way, right? Like, why would you not? When James, I've known James for like 25 years now. And I will tell you, like, one of the great skills that James has is whatever Apple does, whatever is new, and you heard this last week, he takes it off the shelf and immediately starts playing with it. And there's this question of like, can I do something with this? What can I do? And it's not everybody is going to be like that, but it's really interesting to see somebody who's like, oh, I have new colors that I can paint with now. Let's experiment. And I love that on Mastodon, we're seeing them do it out in the open, like literally, like, what can we do? And they've only got the simulator. They don't have any hardware to try, but they're already kind of like just trying to figure out what's the metaphor that works, what doesn't work, what work do I have to do. It's pretty awesome to see it.
That's the joy of being an individual developer like Steve or James or a small team like Rich Siegel, where it's part of the fun of it is, oh, look, we got a whole new toy kit, a whole new sandbox. Let's play with it. And, you don't have the impetus of a large corporation saying, well, okay, but first finish, the login code for our banking app.
It's professional development happening, basically, is what we're seeing. It's like these guys are professional Apple developers, and they are learning new skills. And if they were working at a big company, the big company would be like, go back to your app. Moles and trolls, go back to work.
I'm sure James and Steve and Rich all look forward to this. I mean, I think it's fun. It's like getting a new car. It's great.
And there's definitely big companies that are building little teams around this right now.
Some lucky
they're
developers
like, okay, let's figure out,
embedded in a big company will get to play with it, just not everybody. The other good side of this is it is stimulating the competition. This is what you always want. Meta is not sitting still. They're scrambling as fast as they can to be prepared for the release of Vision Pro. As you remember, they announced a thinner, lighter, less expensive Quest. They this week announced a subscription model, kind of like Microsoft's Game Pass.
Game Pass.
Yeah. 2 games a month. You get to keep them as long as you're a subscriber. The initial subscription is $1 a month, but I think it ends up getting to $8 a month or $60 a year. But that's one AAA title a year. That's a reasonable cost. And it means you'll get 2 new games every month for your Meta Quest or your Quest Pro.
I'm sure there will be Apple Arcade for the Vision Pro at some point, right?
Yeah. I wonder, are they seeding arcade developers saying we would love a game to ship come early next year?
I mean, I think that they didn't want it to become. I think that we saw very little games, and we probably will continue to see very little games because they want to make it a computing platform, not a gaming platform. But obviously, games will be a big piece of what people want to do with it.
Well, it is ironic that is the number one application for everybody else's.
Is it?
Yeah, for the Vive, for the Quest.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The only one it's
Netflix
not for is
oftentimes the number one.
Do you think Netflix?
I mean, entertainment.
Yeah. Watching movies on your headset is usually the number one thing that people do with their headset.
Do people really do that? Because
it's measured in time. Yeah. So it's.
Oh my God! I mean, I would
my stats are a little old.
So far, prefer a nice 77-inch QD
But on a
OLED
plane-
screen 10 feet away that fills my vision, and I can have
But on a
popcorn.
plane.
On a
Planes are
plane.
nice.
Do you see it on a plane a lot?
That's-
Well, you don't travel. What am I
I see it.
for? You don't go
I've
on-
done it on a plane. I've watched movies on planes. It's nice.
I have never seen anybody wearing a nerd helmet on a plane, but okay.
Oh,
You will.
yeah.
You will.
especially with the Apple headset. There's going to be people who are that much into it that they're going to be wearing it in places where it would be socially disadvantageous to actually wear it. And also, you gotta flash it, man. You gotta flaunt it, baby.
It's going to be half
Flaunt
a
it.
first class. It'll be 2 hours into every flight. Half a first class will have the little headset.
You
on.
do see a lot of iPads on flights, tons of them. In fact, a lot of airlines have just abandoned their
That's because the
entertainment
seat
stuff.
is so close in economy that you can't open your laptop. So that's all you can do is
That's all
open
you
up
can
your
do.
iPad.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
We're seeing all these really interesting demos. What we're not seeing is, thank God, finally I can create the virtual reality version of my Outliner app. It's like this is another thing that we're going to be paying really close attention to. That Apple. I think that Apple is going to struggle, at least initially, to defend no, we're not virtual reality in XR. We are spatial. We are the first spatial computing platform. But I think they got a ways to go before they show anybody that yes, you're going to want to run Excel, or you're going to want to actually like do 3 hours of productivity with this thing on when you're not like in economy and absolutely forced to do so. They have to make the case that this is going to be better than it's better than what we use the iPhone for productivity, where we'll use it in a pinch. We'll use it because it's inconvenient to use a real thing, or we don't have the real thing with us. But to make it into something that I would prefer to use the Vision Pro to my laptop or anything else, that's going to be a big leap forward when they make it.
Well, I think that, I have the luxury of, I've got a lot of screens in front of me that people don't see. And I have the luxury of having a room that I can do that in. But in a lot of places, people may not have that. And whether that's in the office or not, I think that there's going to be a fair number of people that, I think that the first one might, again, Apple has to get something out so that, to get back to what we were talking about earlier, developers have to have something they can wear. And that's, the number one reason that you release the product that's coming out is that Apple will still be able to sell as many as they can make, just to developers who want to figure out how to use it, and for companies and organizations that want to figure out how to use it. But I think that as it gets a little lighter, and I think that one version will stay heavy and just get faster, and the other version will get lighter and probably a little less expensive.
If I see somebody with AirPods in and a Vision Pro on their head on an airplane like that, I'm just going to steal their peanuts. That's all. They are
actually
they're all alone.
That reminds me of something. How is this like? Is the using the built-in audio? Is that like wearing like open air headphones where people next to you are going to be able to hear what you're hearing?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think yeah. And then you put AirPods into.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
privacy. Okay.
In a plane, you use AirPods. It is not quite maybe as loud as open headphones, but you can definitely, if you're sitting next to a person who's watching a movie, you will hear the movie.
You hear tinny.
Yes.
You will definitely be the victim of people taking obnoxious selfies with you that you're not aware of.
Oh,
because they
God,
know
yes.
that you have to listen to that movie for 3 hours.
Are you able to? They show the AirPod Pros. Do you know, Jason, when you put it on, if you were talking to them about whether they can you put the Maxes over top, or is it
you can't.
As a weight distribution thing, that would be so great.
You can't
because it would sound so much better.
AirPods Max don't even support any of the new features that are rolling out to the other AirPods this fall. So I think AirPods Max, there's a real question about where's it going and what's it doing.
Oh no! Don't tell me that. I paid $550.
I love it on flights though. I mean, I put these eye things over my eyes, and I have the AirPods, and I have little neck thing. And
it does seal out the sound pretty well, and
I seal out everybody.
Yeah.
Like it's just like I will not interact with anybody.
I was surprised, given its cost. I saw maybe half a dozen as we flew to LA last week. I saw about half a dozen AirPod Max, and they're very distinctive because they're that rectangle shape.
I just think they should build a whole helmet. Like I feel like they're playing small. They're playing small with this. They just drop a whole helmet down on top and call it a day.
Like a pair of French DJs.
Totally. They just go totally Daft Punk. And just That would be, to me, that would be great. Cool. It could have a little air purifier. It could have an air purifier that goes across the front.
It might, that virtual eyeball, that virtual external eyeball thing might be even more interesting if you could do the whole face. Especially like Ghost of, you could be the Ghost of, that could be the one that goes from one of those Japanese animes. Mm-hmm. You could be,
it'd be actually like in the haunted house, the faces on the on the busts, they follow, your eyes would follow you. It'd be great.
Hatbox Ghost, yeah.
All right, let's take a little break. We're going to come back.
Make it fun for the people around you.
Yes.
You're going to spend $3,500. Part of it is entertainment for the people around you.
People can break out a Sharpie and put a mustache on your virtual face. Alex Lindsay's here, Andy Anako, Jason Snell's back. It's Mac Break Weekly. We'll have more in a moment. But first, a word from our sponsors, studio sponsor and all, ACI Learning. IT Pro. I mean, they've been our sponsor, trusted sponsor for a decade, providing engaging and entertaining IT training to our listeners. As part of ACI Learning's family now, IT Pro's capabilities continue to impressively grow with their highly entertaining, bingeable, short-form content, and now over 7,000 hours and counting to choose from. With an astounding 30% of ACI learners being MSPs, ACI Learning is dedicated to supporting your MSP team through any challenge. MSPs prefer ACI Learning's practice labs where you can test and experiment before deploying new apps or updates without compromising your live system. Try out your skills on virtual machines. These labs are great. Multiple instances of Windows Server and desktop clients, and you can do it anywhere. Mac OS, Linux, iOS, Windows, even on a Chromebook. Prepare for challenging certification examinations with practice questions. Take and retake tests to ensure you're ready before you sit for the exam. Just check out this testimonial from a happy MSP team leader. Quote, I had 110 engineers in the field. We had dozens of IT Pro accounts. Last year alone, they passed over 40 certs. If your IT training isn't raising your team to the level you aspire, you need ACI Learning. While the training industry's completion rate, barely 30%, ACI Learning blows its competitors out of the water with an over 80% completion rate. Don't settle for subpar training. This is the format IT professionals want. Assign episode and courses to upskill your MSPs. Manage seats. Assign and unassigned team members. Access monthly usage reports. See metrics like logins, viewing time, courses viewed, tracks completed, and more via ACI Learning's Pro Portal. You'll always know your team is on the right track. You'll also stay compliant with regulations and identify potential risks and weaknesses before they become problematic. Future-proof your business, retain top talent, upskill your team, and gain essential insights with training for individuals, teams, and leaders. While other training companies may not comply with regulatory requirements, ACI Learning holds ISO certification, so you know you're receiving the world-class training your team deserves. ACI Learning's courses, they're easy to navigate. Their structure is so much more straightforward than traditional training programs. I think you should try it for yourself and then bring the whole team along. For individuals, use the code TWIT30 for 30% off a standard or premium individual IT Pro membership. Learn more about ACI Learning's premium training options across audit, IT, and cybersecurity readiness at go.acilearning.com/twit. For teams from 2 to 1,000, and volume discounts start as little as 5 seats. Fill out the form at go.acilearning.com/twit. for more information on a free 2-week training trial for your team. Thank you, ACI Learning. There is a big rumor. I don't like doing rumors, but, what else are we going to do these days? There is a rumor, though, that I think people are very interested in, that there might be, this is from Mark Gurman, a 30-inch iMac. The iMac is not necessarily dead. Just don't get too excited about it, because it's not coming at least until next year.
30 plus inches, he even said.
Yeah,
so
plus. Wow.
How big can this iMac be? But wait, there's more. It's 60 inches. It's 100 inches.
Maybe,
who knows?
It's
an iMac the size of your house. I'm excited, right? Because clearly they initially out the door, they're like, 24 is fine.
Yeah, well, that's
24
what
is
it
fine.
sure seems like. Yeah.
Buy an external display if you want. And it's interesting. I mean, I'm interested in the argument here that some people just want all-in-ones, and they don't want to buy a display and buy a Mac Mini or a Mac Studio, and they just want an all-in-one. And I think there is buying behavior that suggests that that's true. I just wonder, at the high end of a very large screen, how big do they think that market is? Because there is the argument that up there you might as well just buy a big external display and a computer instead.
Yeah, and it's a shame that that's a lot of e-waste. I mean, when you have if someone is buying an external display, that's something that could be retasked a dozen different ways. And if they have no use for it, and they put that up by the curb, that could be retasked by other people in a dozen different ways. When you have that epoxied onto a computer for which there is no current operating system and no current security updates available, again, that's a lot of trash that could have been pulled out of the trash.
I've got iMacs that are solid 10 years old that I'm still using. I just use them for something else. Like they just end up in some room working on doing something. I haven't. That's the one thing about Apple is that a lot of the stuff just keeps working. I may not be able to update it anymore, but I have it running radio or I have it running some kind of check system or something else like that. And now that is, to Andy's point, why I mostly get Mac Minis. Because
and also you're an unusual consumer. I mean, most people have one computer. They have, or maybe a phone, tablet, and computer. They don't have. I mean, when their Mac gets superannuated, they don't say, "Oh, let me put it in the corner so I can run broadcasts on it." Maybe they do. I don't know. It's a pretty big thing for that.
I can't help but think about a Reddit video that I saw just a few weeks ago where it must have been some like central facility that recycles iMacs for an entire school system or something. And they were looking at the really, really old iMacs, like the kinds where it was a very, very boxy flat panel display. And they decided to do a viral video of setting up like 100 of them like as a domino run, which is bad enough. Which is bad enough. But then the first thing to knock down the first iMac was throwing like a 20-inch iMac onto like across the room onto a pile of just haphazardly piled up one of these. It slides down and knocks over the first one. So it's like, I mean, I do occasionally check out like. There are websites that do nothing but like government auctions, and so that's where you can probably find like a shrink wrap bundle of like 100 like white iMacs for like just come and get it for like $50, and you hope that the people who buy them find a way to actually recycle the components, but that's not often the case. It depends on if they can take a write-off much more easily than they can actually put this on a municipal bid listing and arrange for a sale and arrange for the money.
Yeah, one of the big problems we had in Africa was that the varying voltages in the power supply, damages the power supplies eventually. And when you first get a PC that has an external power supply, you're like, why would you ever do that? That is such a pain in the neck. And then when you're building stuff in Africa, you're like, oh, that's a really good idea. Because now when the power supply goes bad, I just buy another one. Yeah. And but I think that was one of the problems we had with the iMac was just that it's all contained and there's the video.
Oh God, that's so sad.
So many.
Okay, don't watch this. We should have had a trigger warning before we.
When the arms of an angel.
The games recyclers play. Mark Gurman in his Power On newsletter says quite a few interesting things this week. Now that Apple has finally gone public with the Vision Pro, it's roping in thousands of additional employees to figure out, how to get all the software working, testing and availability of the hardware along with user studies. User studies have already expanded internally. I think you have.
It was all stuff they couldn't do. They couldn't do before they announced it.
Yeah.
So now they're just flipping the switch on.
It does say Apple is still only allowing the most senior engineers and executives to bring the product home. But I think now that we all know what it looks like, we've all seen it. That's just a matter of time. Next month, the company plans to start allowing select developers to go hands-on with the device. So there'll be some sort of developer edition, according to Mark Gurman. Apple's core iOS and iPadOS are still being ported over for the most part. You only saw a handful of apps, Jason, I take it.
Yes, just those ones that they said are there. Like, again, you got to read between the lines. The ones that are there, it's like when I got the demo of the original iPhone right after it was announced and I tapped on the Notes app and it was a screenshot of the Notes app. There was a little, like, there are some apps that are built for it and then there are a bunch of apps that just aren't there.
Yeah. While with more people testing the headset, Tastes like nickel.
Yum, yum, yum.
Yum, yum, yum. Its shortcomings are coming under greater scrutiny. Many users are finding that the metal frame device feels too heavy after a couple of hours of continuous use. Again, Mark doesn't source this, but I guess he's got his ears to the rails or something. Some also say they've experienced motion sickness, but on a more minor scale than with competing headsets. Did any of the journalists who got the 30-minute test report any motion sickness? I don't think so.
Yeah, no, Joanna Stern did, I think.
Okay.
I'd have to double check that,
Okay.
but she struck me as having had the most negative physical reaction, although it really wasn't that negative at all. But
she coined the
was
term
enough
nerd helmet, so one would expect. She's clearly biased. Apple did develop a second strap, according to Gurman, that goes over the wearer's head. It's unclear whether that strap will... you got it when you got the demo. You had it, right, Jason?
Yep.
But it's unclear whether they'll sell that as an accessory or put it in the box.
Yeah, he says something about how currently they think it's not essential, and my immediate reaction to that was to say they certainly felt it was essential for the press because we all had it. So I think. But the truth is, the accessory, if we think of those as accessories, I think the accessory story with this product is in flux. They came right out and said that they did not have very many different sizes and shapes of that light, what do they call it? The light blocker, or I forget what it's called, but it's basically the cushion that goes between your face and the hardware. And they said there will be many more when it comes out. And how many? Well, many more. They are still figuring it out.
The light seal.
And figuring out how light seal, that's it. So there are many. They go down to Pier 39 and they find.
I think so. Yeah, you'll see them sometimes at the ballpark. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's up in the air, right? I think they are still figuring out which ones they can make and that are going to be the best ones. And they probably don't want to make 20. They probably don't want to make 3. So they're trying to figure it out. Yeah. And that strap, I think, is part of that story.
You have to test this stuff with a large number of people before you really know what needs to be done.
But is it necessary? They may find that so many people's experience are so much better. And I can't imagine that strap costs very much, right?
Meta sells it separately. Strap sold separately for the Quest $1,500 Quest Pro. Strap sold separately, but you
my
can't
Quest
get it.
2, I had to buy the comfort strap or whatever because the one that shipped with it was terrible. And but this is Apple, right? And it's a $3,500 device. So I think it's one of those things where I wouldn't put it past them to put it in the box if they feel like it really is necessary. And I will just point to the demos and say that they certainly thought it was necessary for us to have it.
Well, you don't get a charger with a lot of stuff. So
it's true.
But on the other hand, it also makes you think that is this going to be something that they're going to trust people to simply buy it and have it delivered, or are they going to basically say, come to the Apple Store for a concierge level experience so we can fit it to you correctly, just to make sure that the people who buy it, at least, and the people who talk about the comfort of. Okay, go ahead.
To market the device, Apple is planning to create new areas within its retail stores for demonstrations. The spaces will also let buyers choose the correctly sized bands and light seal. The company's considering initially requiring appointments for purchases, something it did with the original Apple Watch in 2015. Yeah, he's not right. You didn't have to make an appointment to get an Apple Watch. I got mine mail order.
You could have, I think for the gold ones, weren't there
for the gold one, of course.
Well, what they told me, and again, what they told me is what they believed a few weeks ago, and this may all change in 6 months, but what they told me is they expect that most people will want to go into a store because they'll actually want to try it out if they've never tried it out before, but that there will be an online ordering option, and it will be with the Apple Store app, and they will use that face scanning and ear scanning stuff to make a guess about what your sizing is.
That's what Gurman writes.
You will be able to do it.
That makes sense.
But I think they've got a little level of reality that most people are going to want to see it before they buy it.
Apple has 100% go in.
Yeah. Apple has developed an iPhone app to scan customers' faces to help determine the correct size for the light seal. They will issue that app to its retail stores for the purchase process and could also release it as an app to consumers who are shopping online.
That's it. But what that also does? That also gives them a lot of data for which to develop, to figure out what are. Let's have thousands and thousands of scans of people's heads to help us figure how we should generate the next generation of face shields.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. One problem Apple might face, according to Gurman, and I think he's probably right, is that if you ship it too soon, you might have to put an M2 chip in it at the same time as you're releasing Macs with an M3 processor, which might bother consumers.
I think it's going to go Yeah, I think it's going to go out with an M2. Like, I don't think it's going to.
Yeah.
I think if they, no matter what.
Yeah. So that would indicate maybe releasing it earlier in the year than May, according to Gurman. Apple is already looking ahead to the next headset models. It has shifted some employees working on the original Vision Pro to new versions, a second generation high-end model and a lower-end headset.
And I think that the higher end model will probably go to 120 frames a second and probably be 6K per eye. And the lower end model will probably be not very different than the one we have now, just less expensive and lighter. I think that, or at least less expensive.
These are the features that will not make the cut for the first version, but are still planned for the second generation. The ability to show multiple Mac desktop screens when connected wirelessly to a Vision Pro. Right now, you can only see one desktop at a time. I don't know why you'd need multiple Mac desktop screens. That does not seem like. I guess if you're spending $3,500 for it,
for me.
for you, yeah.
I have a lot of different
traders. Actually, traders.
I was absolutely thinking about the idea. Well, I mean, imagine having spaces and having the spaces actually all be visible.
Oh, wouldn't that be cool?
It's a multiple monitor setup, because right now you can only have, a lot of people have two monitors. So you're traveling and you want to use this with your Mac, but it will only display a single monitor.
Might as well
so I
fill your field of view with monitors, right?
Like you're like Liberace, you got like 5 pianos around you.
But that's another problem. There's a reason why, like, ergonomically, if you have multiple monitors, the best way to arrange them is like one on top of the other. People who have like the War Games NORAD set up on their desktop, you are always doing this to like get through your daily work, even if you designate the front ones as the most important ones. And when you add that problem to the problem of now you've got this big heavy weight on your head that you're shifting around with your neck, add that to the list of things that developers and users are going to be learning about during the first generation of this.
How did you like working in that missile silo, Andy? Was it enjoyable?
People were a little bit twitchy, but you become a family.
Turn your key, sir.
They stop asking me to be the tour guide, because I would be the one to do oh my God, it's a lockdown. You're all stuck with us for the next 40 years.
Also,
a bit of a hot ticket, if you don't mind.
Also missing from the first generation, but possibly in the second generation. Again, this is according to Gurman, and he doesn't say according to unnamed sources or anything. So
Liberty's told me.
Is this? Yeah, I don't know if this is speculation or what. The ability for multiple Vision Pro users in several person FaceTime conferences to use personas, which no one wants to use, but okay. The first version will only support one-to-one chats with personas. And actually, a big thing that was missing in the demos, which was Fitness Plus, because that seems like a very natural use for this. And he says that will not be in the first generation.
I have a hard time believing. Well, here's the thing. People are going to make fitness apps for this thing. So I think Apple would be making a mistake if they didn't have Fitness Plus there for this particular model. I understand there might be some issues here, but like Facebook has already shown that with Supernatural, like people want to, and Beat Saber, really, like people want to use this.
I love playing those in my Meta Quest. I'm listening to Lizzo and I'm chopping the notes in half, and it's great. You work up a sweat. It's fun. And then I throw up, but that's another form of weight loss, I guess.
Yeah, but when you have all this moisture being generated inside this enclosed environment, how do you clean the inside of that display, and how confident is Apple that this is moisture sealed enough to prevent like ingress?
You never want to play Beat Saber in a group; it's just not pleasant.
Yeah. plus is the light shield, like, is it machine washable? Can you at least spray it down
fabric, right, Jason? The light seal.
Yeah, I mean, it's fabric with some sort of plastic or something underneath it. But yeah, it's soft. It's meant to be soft.
You could sponge it off. Actually, everybody in the family should have their own light seal. This is a little health tip for you. Okay, what else did Mark Gurman say? So 30-inch plus iMacs. Those are the Vision Pro rumors. He said, in addition to the iPhone 15 lineup this fall, there will be 2 Apple Watch Series 9 models and an updated Ultra, of course.
Nice.
I mean, I love my Ultra, but it's expensive. Other products, I guess, I don't have to buy it, do I? But I will. Other products may come later, not this fall. An M3 13-inch MacBook Pro and 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pro, M3 Pro and M3 Max, these new iMacs. The company's also conducting early work on an iMac with a screen over 30 inches, I'm told. New MacBook Air models, revamped iPad Pros with OLED screens. Ooh, I would like that. That would be nice. New iPad Air to replace the current M1 model. 3rd generation AirPods Pro, no mention of the Max. And new home equipment, such as smart displays as well as an Apple TV set-top box. You know, I got the Pixel tablet that docks. I should bring it in here and show you. That docks on the base. I would love to see Apple do that with the iPad. That is a very natural way to store your iPad, keep it charging, and it's very easy to take it off and then sit down somewhere with it. I think that's I would love to see Apple do that.
Yeah, that was one of the things that really struck me about all the reviews for the Pixel tablet. To be honest, it is a very, very like mediocre tablet. It is essentially an entry level iPad. But it seems like every single reviewer was saying how often they were using this tablet simply by virtue of the fact that it was there on the end table, and every time they wanted to hit Reddit while watching a movie, they would just pop it off the dock, do what they wanted to do, pop it back on again, and it became a very, very heavily used machine. So yeah, if Apple were to create like a car mode, only the opposite of butts in motion mode, the butts on a sofa mode, where when it's actually doing something when you're not actually using it, like acting as a smart display, like acting as a home controller, or something that will show you a video camera or a different kind of feed or a streaming feed, that would be a very, very interesting product. They could do it, and they could do it without. And they got the Pogo pins. They could just build the hardware and put it in a new mode.
We got the Pogo pins right here.
They got the magnets. With magnets and pogo things, all things are possible.
It is. So here it is. Here's the base, and it's not plugged in, but because it's a tablet, it's battery, so it continues to operate, and then it just separates from the base. There's speakers on the tablet and on the base. So I gotta say though, this is $500 for $230. You can get the Nest Home Max, which is pretty much the same thing. It's not an Android tablet. It's not removable. But as you said, it's not the greatest tablet ever made. Android tablets are so disappointing. It does have a fingerprint reader and so forth, and I can run apps on it.
Apple just has all the pieces for this product, right? Like
they do. Whether
it's an iPad that goes into a mode, or whether it's a product that is intended to be placed, somewhere and just be used in that format. They've got Center Stage. They've got the new widget view that they're bringing to the iPhone when it's docked this fall. That's got a whole bunch of widgets in it. They've got a bunch of different. They've got the Apple TV interface. They've got all the widget designs that are out there now. They've got Siri, which it's okay. And like they have all the pieces for all this stuff. And it feels like when Mark Gurman reports like multiple home products are in the works, maybe not like for the next few months, but like in the works, you could see it's typical Apple, right? You can see them assembling all the functionality they need. The idea of continuity camera with the Apple TV, like it's all because that'll get Zoom on Apple TV. So if they do a box that's an Apple TV that also has a camera in it, they've already got all the apps on it. Like they're assembling a home strategy finally out of these pieces, and you can see. And as somebody who had what did I have? I had an Echo Show in my kitchen until it kept trying to sell me stuff every time I talked to it, and now I've got a Nest Home which is really slow and desperately needs an update, but at least it's functional and is not constantly trying to sell me stuff. But like I keep thinking, boy, Apple could really make a good product in this category that would be kind of half HomePod, half iPad that I would really want in my kitchen to do timers and play media and look at widgets and all those things, show me photos, all the things.
That's what I do with this. This being either the Pixel tablet now or before that, the Home Max. And I can even watch TV on it because I subscribe to YouTube TV. So it's kind of like a mini TV. It's a very natural kitchen object. And then to be able to pry the iPad off and take it over to the stove so you can look at the recipe, there's a lot of, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I do, this is where Apple has a huge advantage. So you've got Amazon and you've got Google, and they're making kind of half-assed versions of these products. Apple sits back, and I think when Apple releases it, it's the same thing with the Apple TV. It's twice as much, maybe 3 times as much as a Roku, twice as much as everybody else's streamer, but it's the one you want. It's the best one. And I think they could do the same thing with home. They are poised.
The bar is low. The bar is so low in these products.
Yeah,
too,
everybody's
right?
making half-assed
they're not
crap
very
products.
good.
That's the problem.
NVIDIA Shield, but that is an exception, not the rule.
And NVIDIA Shield is $300 or whatever. I mean, I have it, and it's very expensive. $200. It's an Apple TV cost. And by the way, because it's NVIDIA and it's Android, you can't get a lot of the apps that you get on Apple TV on it. It's limited in the number of apps you can get. So.
There is. I mean, I will say, and probably I'll agree with Andy to some degree here, is that I have a bunch of Android tablets, and that's because they're less expensive, and I have a single use for them, and I don't want to spend $300 or $800, and so
works. Yeah.
Like I've got 14 of these controllers for our Zoom rooms because we do Zoom rooms for our remote events and so on and so forth. I'm not going to buy 14 iPads. So these are inexpensive Samsungs that cost me $119
They're
each.
cheap.
And they all run across, and they only have to run one interface. And I think that I've used a lot of Android devices for that because I think in that environment they work great. Now, do I put that on? Do I carry that with me on the plane? No. But putting the Android, I will say that I love the Android ecosystem when it comes to, I want a couple things. Like, for instance, I have, we used to have them in our office. We had a wall where we had pictures. We wanted to keep on changing behind the scenes of what we do. I did that all with Android. Like, I'm not going to put a bunch of iPads on the wall.
And you're a unique user. I mean, most people don't have multiple iPads.
But I'm still making decisions based on price. Like, it's like I'm not going to buy, and like for cooking, the real problem is my family uses iPads a lot in the thing, but it's getting flour and stuff on them. It just they're a little more expensive, and you're like, do I really need to use this in the kitchen? And where an Android sees all recipes just as easily,
as well. Yeah.
It's a larger issue when you talk about streaming dongles, where there's only one TV in my house where it's worth spending $200 for something like an NVIDIA Shield or an Apple TV. The rest of them, like, I'm not going to spend even $100 on the TV in my kitchen or the TV in this other room. Even in the bedroom, really, I've got a $50 dongle that's a $50 Google made dongle that's actually, because it's not even hooked up to a 4K TV, I could get by with a $30 one and it would work just fine. It's nice to have that kind of a balance, but you're absolutely right that this is something, especially with the point that Jason made, with the change that's going to come to all iPads once you have these widgets on the screen and widgets on the lock screen. It's Google did come up with a very, very simple, but I thought really, really powerful idea with their Google tablet, which is the simple statement. And this is something they're talking from the very beginning, that what if we have a tablet that does something when you're not actually using it as a tablet? What if it could be useful to you while it was charging? And that's something that, however Apple chooses to articulate that's a really good idea, and I hope that Apple tries something along those lines with the iPad.
And by the way, I don't mean to dismiss the Shield, because it's a great product. It's an amazing product, and to NVIDIA's credit, they've kept putting the latest version of Android on it long after they could have stopped. But it's priced, a little more than the Apple TV, and in some ways this encapsulates the whole issue. It's a great product, but it's in its own. It's an outlier, right? And with the Apple TV, you feel like you're part of a larger ecosystem. If you only had one TV, you'd get an Apple TV. You got 2 or 3. And I understand, believe me, I've been thinking about this a lot. We had to cancel All About Android this week because there wasn't that much interest in Android. I think advertisers feel like, probably wrongly, people who buy Android are like Alex and they just want something cheap, which means it's not a great place for an ad to be.
I'm glad that you connected me with people. That's usually not what I'm known for.
No, that's true. That's a good point. But when it comes to tablets, he buys the crap. Actually, there is worse. There's Amazon Fire tablets are actually even worse and cheaper.
Oh, they're so bad. Oh, yeah. I got them thinking, I got one thinking, this will be great because it's only $69 or whatever. And I was like, this is horrible. Like, I can't.
And I think Roku's going down that path where I used to really recommend the Roku. Like it was inexpensive, $69, and it did everything, and it was good. And now with the ads and stuff, it's just kind of, they're all kind of getting crapified. And I think it's a real opportunity for Apple to say, we are not going to be that way. We're not going to sell ads. We're not going to get crapified. We're going to focus on great products. Yeah, they're going to cost a little bit more, like the Apple TV, but you're getting an ecosystem that really works. And as much as I hate lock-in and gated communities, their story is very effective. And when it comes to home automation, that's a big deal because people have been burned. I'm sure, Jason, you've been burned dozens of times by different platforms and stuff not talking to other stuff. We all have Hue hubs that don't, that are. I've been failing at home automation now for a solid 20 years. Yes, that's a good way. That's a perfect way to put it.
And I so want it. I so want it. And I've got parts of it done. Like if I click on my watch, hold on, no, my watch is not getting along with me. If I click on my watch and I go, I want all my lights out, then it theoretically, see, doesn't work. I'm on TV. There we go. See there.
Finally. How long did that take?
I know. And then, but I turn it and I hit my watch again, and then hopefully they'll all turn back on, or this will be a really dark show. It's going really slow right now. So see, I just outlined exactly the problem.
Put yourself on like a voice scrambler just so we get the full effect.
Finally, 5 seconds later, it goes back on.
Think about it. So anyway, so that took me a while to get that to work. So, but that's the simplest thing that you would possibly want to do.
I know.
It's an outlet, and I can't get it to and it's like, okay. And for me, I just feel like I just want Apple to do the lock, the outlet, the camera, the light.
Do you think they're planning that they just want to get a complete
and a thermostat?
They want a complete story, and they're just waiting to do that?
I just feel like they got to give up on everybody. If they did those 5 things, that's like 80% of the market, like of the world. And then after that, everyone else can build around whatever Apple gives them.
There's Matter, which gives them a chance.
It turned out to be a dumpster fire.
Oh,
it's not working. It's not working.
I thought we'd have a unified standard. Apple
we did too. When Matter came out, we were excited, but I've talking to home automation folks, and it's just like it's not tying together.
I'm going to ask Stacey Higginbotham. This is her, among others. This is one of her fields tomorrow on This Week in Google. But TP-Link just came out with Wi-Fi enabled light switches that support Matter. They've had non-Matter switches, and I was hopeful that now I can. Because the Hue thing is just not. I have some Hue lights, and I can tell my Google or my Echo, turn the lights off or on, but it's pretty janky. If I could put everything on a Wi-Fi light switch that I could then control, just like you do with your Apple Watch, or with an iPad, or with my voice, because Matter works with Echo and Google Assistant as well. Then maybe that holy grail of at least being able to control your lights.
Well, and again, I think that Apple, Apple's jumped on with Material and is saying, hey, we can support it, but it hasn't been working. And the thing is, I just think that if Apple just said, well, we're just going to do it our way, there's a lot of people that would jump on and just start building it that way, and they don't have to keep on trying to figure out how to integrate with everybody else.
I would like them to make Matter work with their stuff. I really would. It's not
working with others is not Apple's strong suit.
Yeah.
It's just not what they're good at. They're good at a lot of things. It's just working with others on their standards is not one of them. So.
Well, and they're very weird about the Home app is terrible. The UI is bad. I mean, they have a lot of work to do. So I wonder how much commitment they have to this area.
Exactly. That's even in Apple, you can always tell the difference between when something is a priority and something is not a priority. And Apple's no different from anything else. The HomeKit is. They figure that, okay, well, we kind of got to have it in some way, shape, or form, but there is nobody that's jumping up, leaping on another product manager's desk, leaping up and down and demanding to know why they're not doing more to support their HomeKit projects. And I don't think that there are a lot of competitors that have the same sort of.
No, nobody's doing it. Yeah. Do you think maybe Apple does the research and has decided, nobody really wants this?
I don't think they have enough attention or enough people.
I think that Matter is an example where Apple's basically said, look, we're going to let HomeKit become Matter, more or less. And that means their strategy there, I think their strategy is to find partners that are on the Apple bandwagon and are going to do good HomeKit and Matter support and build a business and compete with other partners maybe. But like you look at something like Ecobee, right? Like Ecobee in Apple are tight and they work really well with HomeKit. And they're a Nest competitor, which is great, I think, for Apple too. But like Apple doesn't need to build a thermostat. They don't want to build a thermostat, but they have found a partner who wants to support Apple platforms. And I think that that's their strategy is like they don't want to build a lot of these home products, but what they want to do is find, and it might be under the guise of like we're selling it in the Apple online store or we're putting it in Apple retail stores, but they've got some leverage there to say like, look, our customers have a lot of money and they want to buy smart home products. And if you work really well with us, we will highlight you. And that gets them the equivalent, and I know Alex might bristle at this, like it's not quite the same as if Apple built it, but Apple's not going to build it. So it's like tier down from there, which is like, we're going to work with somebody to make sure that this is good enough for us to sell in our stores. And that's how you get those home accessories out there that are sort of like, and they're out there. There are good citizens of HomeKit and presumably will be of Matter at some point. And like that, I think that's their strategy. And then they're going to keep the core to stuff that's running their operating systems. And that's going to be like, yeah, we might see a kitchen device with a screen, or we might see an expanded Apple TV that's like a sound bar with a camera, but they're not gonna, I think, make light bulbs, right? They're just not gonna do it, or a doorbell.
And the other thing is that we might be seeing a preview of what the VR industry becomes like, where we've had home automation for a number of years and a lot of basic stuff has worked pretty well. And it's possible that there is no magic solution, that there is no somebody that no matter how much commitment you put into it, people like home automation for turning lights on and off, for door locks and security cameras, and they really like turning lights and they really like setting kitchen timers, and finding out what the weather is. But the idea of home automation or voice assistants as an entire platform for computing through smart speakers, maybe humanity has said this is enough. We don't care about anything above this level. We appreciate, we love how much energy you're putting into this, but we'll enjoy watching these videos and these demos. But so long as we ask what the weather is and it tells us what the weather is, we're good.
We just put in we had to replace our furnace, so we put in a Lennox heat pump. And, for a small additional fee, I don't even want to know how much, they give us a Lennox smart thermostat. But, of course, it's in a world of its own. It doesn't support anything. I have to have the Lennox app on my phone. I mean, it actually is pretty cool. It does a good job.
Yeah. I was going to say, I wrote a smart thermostat story for the Wirecutter back right when I was starting. So it's long been replaced. But one of the things I did is I talked to experts in HVAC, and they said, if you've got a first-party system that has a smart thermostat, you should use their thermostat. Don't go buy a Nest. And the reason is they have access to all the special quirky codes about their stuff. So even though you're getting this Lennox thing, although who knows, maybe there's a bridge, like a home bridge plugin or something.
It works with Echo and Google Assistant, but it's not Matter. I don't think it's Matter.
Yeah. Yeah. So. I mean, that's why I have Homebridge, is to bridge this sort of thing, which I hate, but I have it because it's necessary to do. But there's a reason. It's not just the upsell there. The HVAC guy I talked to is like, no, it's always going to be better if you're using the manufacturer's controller.
Yeah, I have this. It's got this smart thing where it says, well, if it's this, it does it all automatically. I don't have to think about it. I mean, there's stuff in there that if I had an Ecobee, I'd have to go, well, okay, fine, I have to do. I mean, this is.
I will say that even the very first Nest that I installed, it was pretty fast. like I put it in and said, put this wire into here, put this wire into here. And then after that, it was running.
You had that long third wire that went to the furnace. That's the difference.
Common wire.
The common wire. I didn't. A lot of people don't.
Right.
Yeah.
There's where your troubles begin.
This is a good example. This, I think I got this at the Apple Store, but definitely this is sold at the Apple Store, or it was. And 2 days of tech support is what it took to get it to actually turn on.
Is that a TP-Link?
And
that's a Wi-Fi switch.
This is a Eve switch.
Oh, Eve.
And now here's the worst part is I went and bought the Eve power. That's what turned all these lights got turned on and off with an Eve, power strip. But so I didn't, because there was no other place to go as far as I was concerned. Like Eve is making these outlets, and that one works fine. This one still is really, really slow, but it does work now. So it takes.
unfortunately,
I don't more.
Yeah, is a few experiences like that. Some of us, like Jason and you, Alex, can suffer a lot more pain than others. But it just at some point people go, yeah, I give up.
I wired I had my whole house with Hughes for a while. Like I don't know how many. I got them laying around in boxes because I had all Hughes and I built the whole thing and everything else. And then eventually it stops working right. And then you're like,
it's too much trouble to get it back. And yeah. So maybe I won't buy those TP-Link Wi-Fi light switches. I asked Lisa, I said, can I replace, they're 25 each. So I'd have to spend like $500. I said, can I replace all the light switches with Wi-Fi enabled light switches? She said, well, what happens if the Wi-Fi goes down? And I said, oh, that's an interesting question. So, I don't know.
So I'm a big fan of the Lutron Caseta product line. And those are the best ones because, and I feel like we've had this conversation before, but the best smart switches, the best smart lights are ones that behave like regular lights and then are also smart. Right. So those are Wi-Fi controlled and I can have them on timers and I can use a remote. But the fact is there's a thing in the wall and if you press it, the light goes on. And like, that's what you gotta have that. You gotta have that.
You're making me think of every single time that I have overnight house guests over and I have to like walk them through like the training video of here's how to turn the bedside light on and off.
I have a manual. I have like an 8-page manual with pictures. How to turn on the TV, how to turn on the lights, what to do when the lights come on in the middle of the night.
You see, that's what Vision Pro is going to be all about. I can actually send them a simulation of what the house is like, and they could practice. We go through a training video together about, and now say, hey Shlomo, turn on the kitchen lights, but turn off the living room.
Maybe
lights.
I'll get these Casetas instead. These do work with HomeKit as well as Alexa or Echo and Assistant. Maybe I should get these. Do you like them, Jason?
Oh yeah, the Lutron Caseta are the best. That's
what Stacy has said for years. Yeah.
I have never had a case where I've been like, oh, why aren't they working? And they do have a little dongle that you have to put somewhere on Ethernet to be in your house. But other than that, they just work. I gotta say it, like it just works. It hasn't let me down. And of course, if it does let you down, or you have a person who just wants to use a wall switch, it will work just fine. Yeah, so they're really good.
That's really the goal. Is that from Lisa's point of view, nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Let's take a break. Boy, there's still a lot of stuff to talk about. We'll get to that in just a second. But first, a word from our sponsor. I love this stuff. AG1, the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health. I look forward to this drink every morning. Like countless others, I've always wanted to support my health. I've taken a lot of pills. It got to the point where it was a fistful of pills and it was costing me $20 a day or something. I decided I didn't want to sacrifice my taste buds or incorporate more pills through a science-driven formulation of vitamins, probiotics, and whole food sourced nutrients. AG1 delivers comprehensive support for the brain, the gut, and the immune system. And by the way, it tastes so good. I look forward to my AG1 every morning. It's just a great routine. Since 2010, AG1 has improved their formula 52 times in the pursuit of making the best foundational nutrition supplement possible. Highest quality ingredients, you'll be glad to know, rigorous standards of manufacture. So AG1 has really become part of millions of daily routines. As I've asked around when I thought about changing to AG1, everybody said, oh yeah, I've been using that for years. Aunt Pruitt said, oh yeah, AG1 is the best. Individual supplements can quickly add up, but AG1 saves you time, confusion, and money with each serving costing less than $3 a day when you subscribe. AG1 makes it easier for you to take the highest quality supplements, whether it's improving digestion, supporting your sleep. AG1, it's the best bang for your buck, a simple, drinkable, daily habit. Just one scoop, you get the nutrients, the gut health support that helps your body thrive and covers all the nutritional bases. And I love these AG1 packets. When we were traveling, it's great. You just bring these around. That's the whole day's supplements right there in this little packet. So made in New Zealand. So if you're looking to take ownership of your health with a simpler, effective investment, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free of these AG1 travel packets with your first purchase of a subscription. Go to, this is a new address, by the way. Please use this, drinkag1.com/MacBreak. It's actually a little easier than it used to be. drinkag1.com/MacBreak. It's in the name of the URL. Drink AG1. You'll love it. We thank them for their support and for these great AG1 products. My mouth's watering. As soon as I get the packet out, I go, I want some. Moving right along. There's still quite a few stories here. Let me kind of rip through a few of them. There were 0 days. If you haven't updated your various Apple devices, do so. Apple fixed 0 days used to deploy a spyware called triangulation. It's another iMessage zero-click exploit. And you probably saw the .1 updates on your iOS, your iPad OS, your Mac OS. Do not delay. These were discovered by Kaspersky. Zero-click is the big scare because it means essentially they can send you a message. You don't even have to open it, read it, or do anything, and it will infect your computer. And it's, of course, used by state hackers. These are very powerful exploits, which means, you're probably not a target. They're not going to use them. Hackers aren't going to use them to put ransomware on your machines or stuff. It's really used by because they're so pricey to get these exploits. But still, update. Oh, another tip. If your car gets stolen and you have an AirTag in it, call the police. Do not go to where the car is. Bakersfield woman, 61, shot to death.
Jesus.
After she confronted suspects who stole her car. The car was stolen. It had an Apple AirTag in it. She didn't tell law enforcement, according to Bakersfield police. She just went to the 5600 block of Ginger Avenue and found her car and found 4 guys who had stolen it, and they shot her dead.
And Bakersfield is not like it's not the place that you just go wandering off.
Probably not a good idea.
Try to do that. It's very unfortunate, but it's good. Yeah. I mean, this is the challenge is that people get a hold of these. I had a situation where someone stole a camera from me when I was in Africa, and I was at a big event. And I was wearing a Scotty vest, and I had thought about putting the cable. There's a little cable on the inside of your pocket. And someone stole it, and someone said, "Why didn't you put that cable on it?" And I was like, "Because I don't want someone to pull that camera out, and then I'm looking at them, and they're looking at me. That puts me in danger."
Yeah,
I'd rather than just take the camera.
Kind of people who might steal that camera or steal your car.
I don't want to be in that situation.
They may be.
Yeah.
So terrible story, but it's a good warning. They did catch the guys, by the way, or at least the suspects, and they're being tried for murder. Bad news for Apple.
By the way, I just with the technology that our government has at various levels, with AirTags, it is going to get really hard to steal cars because. You'll have to really think about it because they can attach your phone and the car's tracking device. All it needs to do is you go together for about 10 feet and it goes, I think it's you, and that's not hard for them to get a hold of. And so, so things going in the same place together is something that's why when you think about the government wanting all this data, it's one of the things that it shortens the list really fast. About what's possible.
Yeah, ideally, but you still have to get the cops motivated to actually solve crimes. I'm not saying that that's not what they do, but there are a lot of instances in which they, "Hi, well, I just got hit and run with lots of damage, but don't worry, I had a dashboard camera, I have the license plate, I got a video of the person," and you hear stories of, "Oh, well, they didn't really care. They just said, well, follow your insurance company, and that's about it." So,
on the other hand,
there's a lot of moving components to this.
There are happy stories. There was a taco restaurant in San Antonio, Texas.
Every happy story starts with the word tacos.
Tacos, right? Tacos Don Manolito opened in January with a giant bull, a plastic bull statue out front, which, of course, was immediately stolen. However, Don Manolito was smart enough to put a AirTag in the bull. And now, he did not go find the bull himself. He called police, who then helped him locate the stolen bull. AirTag, this is the 9 to 5 Mac story. AirTag fulfills destiny, helps locate giant bull statues stolen from taco restaurant. Thank you, Scooter X, for giving us the good news on AirTags.
That is good, because I don't know why dirtbag crimes like this bother me more than a lot of other crimes. The idea of what if you just decided that, hey, here's a cool thing in front of the store. Why don't we just let it be and let the owner enjoy it, let other people enjoy it? Why do you have to say, hey, I've got a pickup truck, I bet I could pull that thing off? I don't know why that bothers me.
An Apple ad?
Oh, I hope so.
With the giant plastic bowl? That would be nice. Anyway, Don Manolito's bowl is back.
It'd be nicer than those slow pans down like a dim lit mountain valley. You can picture like the crumpled body of a skier
I was
desperately
trapped under the snow. Yeah.
Using his own blood to scratch out like "I love you, honey," to raise the kids the way that I would, like on the leaves.
Oh my God!
I just want to make it clear. If you've missed this point, every Mac Break Weekly is recorded on Taco Tuesday.
Oh, golly!
How are we not
every
having
single
tacos?
one?
How do we not have tacos?
All right.
Yeah, exactly.
We're gonna have tacos sometime.
Yeah,
Actually, be careful
every time.
when you use the phrase Taco Tuesday. Somebody owns that.
Let's get them to be a sponsor.
Mr.
Like the
Taco?
original, like it should be Mac Break brought to you by the original Taco Tuesday.
I think there
man.
was a Taco Tuesday lawsuit.
Saying. I know, but so not Taco Bell, because they're not the original. But we have to find the original Taco Tuesday and then get them to sponsor us as we are the Mac daddies of Taco Tuesday.
Back in wait a minute. This is actually breaking news. Just came out minutes ago. Taco John responds to Taco Bell's Taco Tuesday lawsuit. Taco John's in a filing.
Taco John, if you're watching us, we'd love to have you.
Yes, we will do Taco Tuesday.
We'll eat your tacos.
We'll call
on
it
air.
something like Taco Mac Tuesday or something. In a
Mac
filing
Daddy.
Friday
Taco
responding
Mac.
to Taco Bell's
Taco
petition
break.
to cancel
Taco
the
break.
trademark. Oh, wait a minute. Taco John's applied for a trademark for Taco Tuesday, to which Taco Bell said no. So this is actually interesting. Taco Bell filed a petition with the USPTO to cancel the trademark owned by Taco John's for 34 years.
Good for them.
Because Taco Bell claims the commonly used phrase should be freely available to all who make, sell, eat, and celebrate tacos.
The Defense of Tacos Act, sponsored by Taco Bell and Doritos.
There's got to be a marketing plan here. They got to take away your Taco Tuesdays. I think I would turn that, whether you get it or not. For Taco Bell, I would use the moment. And Taco John's. Taco John's. Where is Taco John's?
It's regional, is what it says. A regional chain.
Texas.
Yes, probably Texas.
But also, did you read? So Apple is now suing, basically taking legal action in Switzerland to own all trademarks of all apples everywhere and every company, even like the Apple Growers Association trademark, which is simply an apple with a plus inside it, and they basically want to either be granted exclusive rights to use any sort of like an Apple logo anywhere, or to at least get all of these people to sign non-compete and basically sign agreements, essentially bending the knee to Apple, saying that yes, your 50-year-old, 60-year-old trade group uses it only with our benediction.
It's a 111-year-old trade group, the Fruit Union Suisse. For most of its history, has had a symbol that's a red apple with a white cross, the Swiss flag. Apple says, no, you can't do that. We have a hard time understanding this because it's not like they're trying to protect their bitten apple, which is, right, Apple's got a bite out of it.
Right.
The objective, according to Fruit Union Swiss director Jimmy Marietos, their objective here is really to own the rights to an actual apple, which for us is something that is really almost as universal as Taco Tuesday. The case has left Swiss fruit growers puzzled, according to Wired. Apple did not respond to requests for comments. I think Apple hires lawyers and says, go thee forth, and protect our trademarks.
If I read that correctly, I think that they either want to own it or they want to have no one tell them that they can't own it. They want mutual exclusive whatever with the brand. And so what usually this kind of thing happens because somebody sent them an email. Like this is how you stir up a beehive, is that somebody with an Apple-ish logo sent a cease and desist to Apple or something at some point in time, probably 4 or 5 years ago. And then they crushed them, like that, like there's a whole bunch of legal whatever, but they were like, we got to make sure this never happens again. And then there's like a plan, there's a bunch of meetings, and there's, and then there's
some agreement.
An initiative.
Yes.
No, they're not, Apple's not trying to take the brand. What they want to do is make sure that no one can ever claim against them.
Okay, but let me tell you the history of Apple's lawsuits. So you remember the Apple Core lawsuit where they fought back and forth with the Beatles. The Beatles said, fine, just don't do any music. Then Apple said, we have this thing called iTunes. We were thinking. So anyway, they finally settled that back in 2007. But Apple has also sued a meal prep app that had a pear logo, a singer-songwriter named Frankie Pineapple, a German cycling route, and a pair of stationery makers and a school district, all for using an apple of some kind in their logo.
Yeah, this is so it's when I see stuff like that and how regularly they've been doing that, I think that the legal department at Apple, like independently, they know that we got a pretty good scam going. So long as we keep filing these lawsuits, all our kids are going to Ivy League colleges. We can keep trading our boats for bigger, better boats.
I should also point out, and I've been told this many times, because we have a trademark for TWID and the TWIT logo and stuff like that, that you have to defend these. Otherwise, people assume you're not defending them anymore, and so it's fair game. So to a certain degree, a company that has trademarks does have to defend them. I think common sense, perhaps.
This is pretty super aggressive,
yes.
though, yeah.
Nevertheless, Taco John's says, I think Taco John says it's okay. Let's see. Taco John's parent company, Spicy Seasonings, denied that there is, quote, anything not cool about obtaining a trademark for the phrase. The Wyoming
Taco.
You might think that we're some stuffy corporation
We're
here,
not
but we're
stuffy.
just as with it as you folks.
as the
here.
Youngs. The Wyoming-based company said Taco Bell's lawsuit is filled with statements of opinion to which no response is required, including that Tuesday is a mediocre day of the week. Well, I never.
As somebody born on a Tuesday, I say, how dare you?
How dare you, sir?
How dare you, Taco Bell?
All I
This
can
means
say is that
war.
Taco Bell's getting a lot of good. They're getting a lot of, not, I don't know, good or bad, but they're getting a lot of press for it. A lot of people are talking about Taco Bell, and we haven't talked about them for a long time.
Leo, I thought you were going to say that Taco John's had declared that anybody can use the phrase Taco Tuesday from Wednesday to Monday. It's yours.
It's Taco Bell that's defending our right to call it Taco Tuesday. It's Taco John's that is trying to stop that.
Yeah,
So just so we're clear on that.
No, but they're willing to let you have Taco
Wednesday.
Tuesday on Thursday,
You
or
can have Taco
or
Tuesday
Saturday,
on Wednesday.
whatever.
Yeah.
And
Just-
Taco
I like
John's,
that.
we're really excited to have your tacos, but if you don't, this offer expires in the next 2 weeks. After that, we're going to go to Taco Bell and do a whole ad campaign of Mac Break defending our right to
call it Taco Tuesday. I don't care. Come on and sue us. I would like to have tacos delivered to each of your domains on Tuesday.
I'm 100% behind that.
I'm always, as a freelance journalist in a rapidly collapsing market, I'm very much in favor of people sending me free protein and carbohydrates.
There's always room for tacos.
Oh, yeah.
In a little bit more serious lawsuit, the Supreme Court has rebuffed Apple in the Caltech patent case. You may remember that Caltech says they have Wi-Fi patents that Broadcom uses, and Apple, when it used Broadcom chips in their devices, infringed. Caltech at one point won a $1.1 billion verdict, but a lower court said last year the amount of damages needs to be recalculated. This lawsuit's been going on since 2016. Apple and Broadcom asked the Patent and Trademark Office Administrative Court to reconsider whether the patents were good in the first place. That's one of the ways you can try to get around these, I know, because there was a podcast patent that ended up getting overturned thanks to the EFF in an inter partes case at the PTO. But the Patent Office Tribunal agreed to review the patents and ultimately upheld their validity. That's the risk. If you challenge it at the Patent Office and they say, no, that's a good patent, now you got a double trouble. So Caltech won a Los Angeles jury in 2020, sided with Caltech. The company's appealed. U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit in February of last year upheld the jury's findings. Apple said, well, and Broadcom, let's take it to the Supreme Court. In January, the Supreme Court asked the Biden administration to weigh in. The Biden administration said, don't take the case. The law is properly applied, and the Supreme Court, in fact, did not take the case. So I'm not sure where the award stands, but as of now, Apple and Broadcom now are going to have to face a trial to find out how much they owe, because they owe. You owe. It's just a matter of how much you owe. Let's see. Anything else in the listing here? Studio Pro headsets from Beats are going to in the FCC database. That sounds like they're going to do a kind of Pro Max version of Beats.
Yeah. Have we decided what the difference is between Apple branded headphones and Beats branded headphones?
Their EQ,
in terms of like
the
if
EQ
you're trying
curve
to,
is different, I think. Yes.
Yeah. Like if you're trying to recommend headphones to people and someone is automatically going for Apple brand, like when would we steer them towards Beats, like for sports?
No, music. Modern music, right? I don't know. What do you think?
How they look.
Yeah.
How they look.
Yeah.
And if you like more bass. Like
Bass, because I think they're bass heavy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
I did like.
Anybody know? I don't know.
There are some functional differences. Like I think they make more of an effort to do the Bluetooth, proper Bluetooth pairing, because they're meant to be more cross-platform than AirPods are, even though AirPods are that. There is a sport version, right? There's a little more variety there. I think there are some features that they lack that the AirPods have, but they're pretty close. It is, yeah. It's an exercise in branding and Apple focusing on AirPods on, a very particular market. But like they're good, is my understanding, is they're very good, and they have a lot of the Apple secret sauce in them, even though they're, not Apple branded.
I keep buying third-party earbuds, not Beats so much, but others, just to compare them. And Apple's AirPods Pro are really the kind of the standard. I just got the new Denon Pearl Pro. They have a special technology that they place sounds in your ears and condition the sound based on that. It's kind of like a hearing test without you doing anything.
Yeah. And
they sound very, very good, but they're missing that ecosystem. This is what made me start thinking about ecosystem. The transparency and the mix of the new features that are coming soon. All of that Apple can do because they have the phone. They have, and it just gives them more capabilities, even if you could make an equivalently good sounding headphone. By the way, the Denon Pearl Pros are twice as much as AirPods.
Right.
So.
Well, that's actually one of the bigger qualities that has gone to my own decision making, because the thing is, like all of the truly wireless headphones that I've had, they've got an end of life that's measured in a couple of years, either because the battery is going to go kaput or because simply I'm going to lose them because things happen and I'm me. And so there's like I love Google's Pixel Buds A, because I think that $99 for me is exactly the right amount of money to spend. I'm willing to spend like $40 a year for use of truly wireless headphones. The sound is certainly not as good as Apple's Pros or the best Sonys or probably the Denons, but they're really, really good. And the other thing is that I love the design where they have that little silicone little tail that sort of nestles into one of the folds of your ear. They're by far the most comfortable earbuds I've ever used. And so that's why, like, even though I do have a nice pair of Sonys, usually when I'm going out for my walk or for any real reason, I'm using the Pixel Buds. It's a complicated piece of math.
Yeah. But Pixel Buds with Android makes sense.
But also with my iPad, with my with my Apple stuff. I mean, I agree that the secret sauce of having Apple created earbuds working with an Apple created product, all tied together with Apple created software, is awfully nice. I really wish I had that kind of like the ability to check the charge on everything I had. But again, when it comes to, it's hard for me particularly to spend $200 and some odd on something that, even if I don't misplace them, I know that in a few years they're just going to be garbage. And even if that weren't the case, they're not as comfortable as these cheaper ones. And I'm sure that there are $60 earbuds that have certain elements that are designed that suit my ears better than the Apple ones.
And there's another issue in some ways because these, for instance, these Pro support aptX, which is a high-end Bluetooth codec that Apple doesn't support. So
my biggest complaint is that if you have any other Bluetooth app other than Apple, and I don't know if this is the W1 chip or whatever, but when someone calls me and I'm on a different headset, which I'm often on, when I'm talking on the phone and I'm working or doing something, I'm on an OpenComm.
Yeah, I bought those because of you. They're great. Yeah, from Aftershocks.
You can.
Yeah.
No one hears anything. If you have that little boom that comes down and everything else, it's great. When I'm purely listening and I might answer a call, I'm on the Ultimate Ears Fits because they fit. Like they're great and they're really in my ears. And when I'm on kind of general purpose, I'm on my AirPods. But what's interesting is when someone calls me, no matter how often I've been using this OpenComm, it's the only one connected to my phone. And when it answers, it doesn't answer to the OpenComm. I have to go select it every single time, and I'm just like, I can't decide whether it's conspiracy or just missing that chip or something because it's just like if I'm driving, I don't want to use it because I don't want to. I use the AirPods because I want it to just answer to the headset. So it's just it's annoying.
I got to find something that does aptX lossless so I can try these pearls with it. Anyway.
I did think there was an interesting story like last week, the week before. There was an interview with Kevin Lynch of Apple and Deirdre Culbeck about finally answering at least the first substantive answer to the question, why doesn't Apple allow third-party watch faces? And they ascribed it to just reliability, that they were basically saying that they don't know, like if they allowed third parties to develop watch faces, then maybe the next time they upgrade iOS, then the watch face would break. And I thought that was an interesting point of view because they have no problems when they allow developers to write other kinds of apps for the watch and they don't worry about breakage.
Yeah, it's weird. Somebody in our chat room said he's got a bet on whether you'll have custom eyeballs for the spooky eyes before you have custom watch faces for the Apple Watch.
It's gotten to the point where WWDC, the number one thing I want to see is custom watch faces. Like I would literally tweet it out like, oh my gosh. Yeah. There's production things that I want to do with my watch, I want a very specific thing with second hands and certain things. And I want my complications to be in a very specific way. And, it's, if Apple did that, then I probably wouldn't care anymore. But given that they haven't done it, and I desperately, there's only one on watch face with second hands. if you're in production, you really want to know how many seconds are left. There's an exercise one and then there's a dorky one. And so the fact that Apple doesn't do that, just let us experiment, and if it doesn't work, let us know. You can give us 3 warnings that we might break the watch or it might run out of battery or whatever. That's fine. But this is definitely a place where usually Andy's talking about it, where Apple's being over controlling, and they should just let us free our watch faces.
Free the watch face.
Yeah.
Although having had custom watch faces on Samsung watches and others, they're usually pretty crappy. So
that's true. But the thing is, like, I don't want there to be 500 different watch faces available. I want there to be one different one that I absolutely love, and I will be having on that watch until that thing goes into the trash.
This is one of those areas where Apple's reliance on a curated app store, kind of proves the point, which is, you could say, oh, no, we can't allow that. Like, you never know, there might be trademark issues, we might be lawsuits, or they might not work right. And it's like, yeah, you've got an app store. So only let in the ones where you've checked and they're okay. Right. And then wouldn't that be nice? So I still feel like it's going to happen eventually, but I would have lost the bet if you had asked me back when back almost like 9 years ago when they announced the first Apple Watch, how long it would take to do custom third-party watch faces.
Yeah. Or even if they basically allowed a handful of studios to create the right to the authorization to do that sort of stuff, because I could absolutely see where they don't want the design of the Apple Watch was just as important as like the engineering or the software. They wanted to make what looked like a beautiful, elegant, timeless classic watch, and that they wouldn't have to keep updating every 2 years as the fashions change. They could just update the software. So I absolutely see where they would want to have some control over to make sure that let's not have when the Calvin is pissing on the 4, that means that it's the 4 o'clock, but if they simply said, here are some studios that we really, really like, we have given them like license to produce the following 8 watch faces that are optional downloads or optional purchases, and to see how well those things work out, and then keep expanding the program as they see how people are reacting to this sort of stuff. Although I'll say, having a Snoopy and Woodstock watch face as with the new WatchOS, that delayed my tension a little bit, because I want a Snoopy watch.
That's all you really needed, huh?
I'm a simple man.
Simple man with simple needs.
We sing, we dance, we bring in the harvest.
Jason had
we pray to an indifferent God.
Interesting article in Macworld. I thought we should talk about this while Jason's here. Sorry, Apple. Most people will never use any of the new features coming in iOS 17. Now, did you write that?
Credit to my editor.
Okay.
Well, no, you can always, here's the secret, is you can always go to 6 Colors when I link to it and see my headline that I wrote, which was something like, pro tip, the iPhone has a discoverability problem, but it's the
SEO's not as good on that. I don't think
this one made me laugh. I like some of their headlines are a little too much, but the point is, like, Apple can ship new features, but how do users ever discover them? And there's a new thing. My news angle is that there's a thing called TipKit in iOS 17 that is going to try to standardize so that app developers have a standard way, and Apple is using it too, a standard way of rolling out little tip bubbles that will pop up, and they don't want them all at once. Like, you can set it to be like, when a user does this behavior or does this behavior for the 3rd time, you can pop up a little tip that said, here's a thing you could do. And they don't do 5 at once, only do 1 every few days or weeks or whatever, because they're trying to improve discoverability. The reason that this came up is that while I was in Oregon for my daughter's graduation, my wife and I go out to lunch, and she comments that I don't have pictures of our kids on my lock screen. And she says, she works in an office with other human beings. She's like, how will people know it's your phone? Because people know that it's her phone because it's got her pictures of her kids on it. And I said, oh, well, you can have a lock screen that shuffles through all the pictures of our kids, because that's an iOS 16 feature. And I opened it up, and so she didn't know about that feature. I found a bug, which is that the faces that it offered were totally random and not our children. Which is like, why are these pictures there? They're like people we took 2 pictures of, and they're like, would you like to shuffle between those 2 pictures of randos? It's like, well, no, Apple. And so I filed the feedback about that. That's fine. But like, then I'm looking at her app screen, and she's got 9 pages of apps just going off into oblivion. And I realized Apple, like 3 or 4 years ago, Apple completely simplified and adjusted how we handle apps on iPhones so that you don't have to have them on the screen anymore. They're still in the app library. You can still search for them, but you can sort of like simplify your life and delete all those extra screens, and only sort of have, instead of having a junk drawer, which is what she has, you can just have a couple, like your favorites on a page or 2, and then the rest are just in the app library. And I explained this to her, but she was like, oh, well, that's cool, right? But like, she never thought about it. And I thought, well, what did Apple do to try and prod her to completely change the way that she handles apps? And it struck me that, like, what happens with most people is they learn once how to do something. So they learn how to manage apps on an iPhone. And then 5 years pass, and Apple says, hey, it's getting kind of messy on that iPhone. We're going to do a cool new feature that lets you organize it better. And all those people who learned that, they just don't notice, and they keep doing what they learned. And it just struck me that, like, it's a hard problem. Like, how do you not get super annoying? Like, when they update their phone, if you bombard them right then, they're not going to do it. And I realized that it's not our viewers and listeners, right? It's like everybody else. We're the discovery system for the people who listen to our podcast, right? But the general public, and my wife was a good example, because believe it or not, I do not replicate Mac Break Weekly at the dinner table. My wife was like, she learned in 2014 or whatever, 2012, 2010, how to manage apps, and it never knew that Apple made it easier. So it just got me thinking, like, we're about to enter this beta cycle again, and new apps or new OS features are coming in the fall. But the core problem is, like, how do regular people ever know that something like that lock screen thing that got added last fall, which is so oblique, right? It's not even an app. You have to be in the lock screen and then press and hold. Like, how do people even know that exists? And what if you're Apple? how do you strategize to try and get it to be discoverable in some way? I don't have an answer. I'm fascinated by how hard the problem is.
Yeah, I'm sorry that they don't. That Apple doesn't continue to publish like update manuals on Apple Books. That there used to be like, here is an entire like 192 page manual on how to use your iPad, or specifically here is how to use the iPad iPad OS whatever with a whole prefix that says here's the stuff that's brand new with this, because there is ideally things would be simply discoverable, and ideally simply having when you finish the update, walking you through a simple slideshow of advertisements of things that are different also would be sufficient. But if people just got into the habit of, hey, look, there's a whole document that explains not only what these features are, but how actually to use them. I don't know why Apple doesn't do that anymore. I wish they did.
I think they leave it up to people to do it, and I think that not as many people do it anymore that they used to. There used to be those great little manuals that people would put out.
Yeah.
I know that for me, on a daily basis, on some app, I'll do something like, I wonder how to do this, and then when you see what Apple did, you're like, whoa, that's really cool. I was doing this thing where I was showing countdown clocks inside of Keynote, like you can do a countdown clock for your show. And when I was prepping for it this morning for office hours, I did magic move from one to the other, so thinking that, it'll reset and move my countdown clock. It kept the countdown clock running. Like I started on by the third slide, it just kept on running in seconds and just moving it along and changing the images behind it. And that was like I've never seen that published anywhere. Like I'm sure that they did somewhere. It's in some note that, by the way, magic moves will keep your video running. I mean, it's probably connected to the backgrounds that run and everything else, but the, Apple does a lot of things, and they do one thing Apple does that if you're listening and you're an educator, they do education seminars, I think at WebEx or something like that. And I've sat in some of those, and that's another one of those ones where I sit in the Keynote ones because I use Keynote a lot. And there's stuff on the iPad that like you can just take your pencil, grab onto an object with your pencil and just swirl it around, and you've now built an animation path. Like, like you've just, and the first time they did that, I feel like I know Keynote pretty well. I've been using it since version 1. And as soon as they do it, I think I had an audible like, whoa, like holy smokes. And I think to your point, it's unfortunate that Apple leaves out, doesn't educate us. Because half of the problem is, I will say this is not an Apple problem. This is everybody's problem, is that there is so much value locked in devices that we don't know about. They spend millions of dollars developing things. I've said this oftentimes about my microwave, that I know how to turn it on and I know what the power is. It's got all kinds of fuzzy logic in there that can cook my chicken and everything else, but it's hard to figure out how to do it. And so I don't do it. I just turn it on and give it some time and move on. Yeah. And that's the delta there is wetware development, which is teaching me and creating an app. And nowadays I get these apps all the time. I'm almost expected. I'll get some app and I'm looking for the QR code. Like, where's the QR code? Because there's somewhere, like if you buy the screen for this little protective screen that I have on the front, had a QR code. I hit it. It opened up a movie on YouTube that showed me exactly how to put that protect, and there's no amount of explanation. There's no manual that can tell me how to put that screen on as well as a video. And so they have a manual. They have a step-by-step that's there that you can follow, but there was a little QR code and I hit it and boom, I understood it. And I think that not just Apple, but everybody has to get better at that because, especially with software.
Yeah, it's a super hard problem. In the Discord, the Wheelwright said, well, don't they, when you update to your new OS, isn't there a big thing that says, here are all the new features? The answer is yes, but the problem is, I think a lot of times people just want to use their phones, right? They're like, I had to wait for it to restart and now I want to use your phone. This happens to me when I'm on a lot of betas, so I'm on a lot of test flight things. And like test flight, you open the app and it's got a thing, it's like, here are all the new beta features and check this out and all of that. And every time I launch an app that's got one of those, I'm like, God, not now, test flight, I want to use this app, right? Because in the end, I didn't launch it to read about beta features, I launched it to use the app. And so when you can do that and maybe you'll get them in the right moment. But I think that the challenge is that a lot of times they're not ready to learn and they're not ready to sit down and have a whole session about the 20 features that you added you think they should know about. So like, how do you get them later? And like an example that I found that every time I recount this, there are people, and there'll be people who are listening now who are going to be like, no way, I can't believe you could do that. One of my wife's complaints was when she's got an app that gets added to page 9 and she wants it on page 1, she has to tap and hold until it wiggles, and then she drags it over to the left side to the edge, and then it moves one page, and then she waits or wiggles it and then moves another page. And I said, well, did you know that if you put another finger down, you can swipe with that finger while you're
I didn't
holding
know
the
that.
app
I didn't even know
and go
that.
all the way to page 1 really fast.
Oh my God.
They added that like 2 years ago. But does anybody know? So then I would say, wouldn't it be interesting if Apple could do something like see somebody slow dragging an app and say, hey, did you know that there's a faster way to do this? But that's the challenge, is like, how do you do that? How do you cue that? How do you observe behavior? And then, you know, you don't want to be clippy, but you do want to like intercede at some point and say, there's a faster way to do this. Or how do you put something up on the lock screen that says, hey, would you like a cooler lock screen? You know, tap me to find out, right? Like,
And the problem
We're not
is
judging you. We're just saying.
It's a challenge. It's just really hard.
And the hardest thing is that like Adobe will try to do that when you open up, every time you open up Photoshop, it wants to tell you something new, and you're like, oh my gosh, where do I turn this off? You know, like so it's that's the balance is always like, it tries to help you, and then you're half the time you're like, I don't want your help.
Yeah, and they have the Tips app, as Wheelwright's pointing out in the Discord, and it's absolutely true. But again, you have this user problem of like, a lot of users are like, oh boy, I will read some tips now, right? Like, or they come out as push notifications and they end up getting in your way. And like, that's part of the challenge is like Andy said, well, Andy and Alex have both covered this. Like, the microwave problem is great, right? Which is just like, I just push the button and it cooks the food. I don't want to read a manual about it. And that's like, there are manual readers out there, and bless them, but like you do, it's software. Like, you need to hold people's hands a little bit more and be like, don't want to bother you. Sorry to bother you, but did you notice this thing? Because most people are not going to curl up with the manual. They're just not.
And the thing is like I have a June at home in my house, and they do it really well in the sense that it just kind of works, but you can attach your phone, and and they have stuff that you can learn how to, make, like, and you learn how to make something, and we make something. I think we learned how to do something with the June like the first week, and we make it at least once a week, and we
did too.
We don't do it the same way.
Roasted Brussels sprouts. Yep.
Yeah, for us, it's like potatoes with carrots or something like that. And the thing is that, but what they did really well, and I think Heston does this really well, where they have these tutorials on how to make new dishes with their product, and they spent a lot of money on those. Like it's not like they said, we're going to give you a little like how to. There's little videos of how to do each piece and how to put all that together, and it makes a big difference. And it adds a lot of value to the product without actually engineering anything new. It's just video, and I think that it's missing, and it feels like it should be everywhere.
Yeah, it's a huge problem
with all software.
Yeah, and hardware.
All technology.
Yeah.
It's just technology. Yeah. It's they can do a lot of things, and nobody got time for that.
Mm. It's or if they are totally at sea, they'll learn at one time. But like, to tell them we have improved it to do a new way, it's like, I'm just going to use my way that I use.
And the hard part is that I've been thinking about putting together keynote tips because my whole thing is I do all these keynote things, but if you do a search online, it's always like, there's like the first minute and a half on YouTube of now subscribe to my channel.
God,
and now I would do this thing. And the problem that you may have, I'm like, I know what the problem is, and it's in the title of the video. I want you to start with, this is how to do the thing.
That's not how you build an audience on YouTube.
Those are bad YouTube videos. Those are bad.
Well, I think it's just playing the game. I mean, this is the whole thing about all of these platforms is you play you tune yourself to the algorithm, which isn't necessarily what users want. But that's how you get discovery.
Have you seen a recipe page on the web? Oh my God!
Oh, the recipe's at the bottom of the bottom.
3,000 word essays about how they made this recipe for their mom, and then the recipe's at the very bottom.
With every 2 inches, there's like 4 more ads. There's like 4 more ads, and then every 2 inches, 4 more ads, and it's
Whenever I make shake and bake, I'm always taken back to my skip here in Provence. When I met
and I helped. All right, we're going to take a little break. Come back with your picks of the week. So, guys, get those ready. You're watching Mac Break Weekly, and those of you who are on Club Twit, the picks are going to happen right away because you don't get any ads. Now, ad-free is just one of many benefits Club Twit members get. Really important to us. I mean, the biggest benefit you get is that Twit sticks around, that we will continue to do this show and our other shows, because times are tight for podcasters everywhere. They're cutting back. They're laying off. Shows are disappearing. Lisa realized 2 years ago, that the real future of Twit lay in its audience. You, our community, that's the strength of Twit. And so as a result, we started Club Twit. I'm going to lead with the most important part, $7 a month. It's a couple of lattes a month. Actually, not if you go to Starbucks. It's like a half a latte. But nevertheless, $7 a month. You get completely ad-free versions of all of the shows, including this. You get access to our Discord, which is a really fantastic, even Mr. Beast says you should subscribe to our Discord. Fantastic community of itself. You also get shows that we don't put out in the public, including the new AI show with Jeff Jarvis and Jason Howell are putting together for us. We're very excited. That's going to launch in the club. That'll be a club special. Home Theater Geeks with Scott Wilkinson's Club Only Mac, Hands on Mac with Micah Sargent, Hands on Windows with Paul Thurrott, the Untitled Linux Show. I would like to put every show out for everybody, but the club members are paying for these shows. They're making it possible, so we want to make sure they get access. And you know what? If a show does well and builds an audience, like This Week in Space did, we start it in the club, we put it out in public after it builds an audience. So the club is really an important incubator for us. It's a way to keep the lights on, keep the staff employed. I don't want to beg, but I'm on my knees. Please join Club Twit. $7 a month, $84 a year. There is a family plan. There's a corporate plan. Both of those will save you money. Twit.tv/Club Twit. Twit on. Oh, and yeah, we're bringing back Hands on Tech, some of our reviews. In fact, that's where my review of the Pixel tablet will appear first. It's also where my review of those Denon Pearl Pro earbuds. Really, the whole point of them is this new aptX lossless codec, and I have to first find something that will play aptX lossless. But that review will be part of Hands on Tech, the returned review show. That's club only. Twit.tv/Club Twit. Sorry to interrupt. Sorry to do this. But if only a few percent, right now it's about 1% of the audience. If 5% of the audience subscribed, we'd be golden. That's all I need. That's all I need. Maybe you're one of the 5%. Time for our picks of the week. Jason Snell, kick her off, if you will.
Sure. I have had a Mac server in my house forever.
Aren't you fancy?
Since the beige G3 days. And really, you know, I used to do very different things that I do now on the Mac server, but I love having a Mac Mini. It's been a Mac Mini for a long time now in my house. However, if you don't know, like back in the day, Mac OS X server was a thing, and Apple built all these tools that would go on top of the Unix stuff that's in Mac OS and Mac OS X to do server stuff. And over the years, Apple has gradually sloughed off every single one of those features. In the latest couple of versions, they don't even do, Python's not in there, and all of the scripting stuff is dropped, and a lot of the server stuff is dropped. There's very little left of that, and I still run a web server on my for a bunch of stuff on my home server. Anyway, I just upgraded to an M2 Mac Mini, and that meant updating to beyond Mojave, which is what I was on my old server, classic, and it stripped away the last vestiges of anything that Apple built in of scripting languages and Unix servers and stuff like that. And I decided finally to just not keep migrating the same server I've been migrating for 20 years, but instead embrace the new world. And so instead of, getting out, I installed Homebrew, but instead of installing a million different things on the command line, I decided I actually already bought a license for it to do some WordPress testing, a thing called MAMP and MAMP Pro. It basically it sounds like a horror movie monster, but what it is Mac AMP in the sense of, what is that, Apache, MySQL, PHP. Basically, it's an app with an installer, and there's a pro version that has more features.
So there's the LAMP stack has been around forever. Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP.
Yeah, this is
a MAMP stack. Okay.
Yeah, but the idea here is that instead of doing all that, especially since Apple used to provide graphical interface controls for all of these features and has abandoned it entirely, this is a Mac installer that runs a web server and will run WordPress. It will install PHP, so you don't have to do it through Homebrew or something like that.
Or, by the way, because a lot of people don't want PHP, Python, Perl, and Ruby. Or
exactly.
if you don't want Apache Nginx. So it's really updated, which is great.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. In some ways, this app reminds me so much of what Apple was trying to do with macOS 10 server back in the day, which is create a Mac app that has all that Unix server stuff behind it. It was very easy. I was able to use Let's Encrypt to get my own SSL certificate and point it at the certificate, and then it just worked. It was a lot easier, let me tell you, than trying to install all of that software and edit all those text files to get it to be exactly what I wanted. So if you were thinking, and I will say, the number one reason I started using MAMP was because I was doing WordPress development for 6 Colors when we moved to WordPress, and I needed a local server to do that. And rather than, I tried to install all the things that were required to get WordPress up and running on my Mac, and it was a nightmare. And with MAMP, you literally turn it on, MAMP Pro, you turn it on and you say, yes, WordPress, please, and it's done.
Can I still use my Mac if it's running?
Yeah. Yeah, it runs in the background. It's invisible, in fact, other than when you're administering it, it's just running. It's just, if it's your Mac, then if you restart it or sleep it or whatever, then your server goes away. But yeah, you can do it. In fact, that's what I did. I spent an entire summer doing WordPress development where what I was doing was on my Mac here on my desk, I just had that as a local host server running WordPress so I could fix my templates and debug them and do all of those things. And it was a lot easier than trying. I know if you're super Unix savvy, it's going to be second nature for you to install this stuff. But if you're a Mac user who knows just enough to be dangerous, you could be a little less dangerous and use your Mac user skills by using this app instead.
Plus, it has a nice control panel, centralized control panel, which makes it much easier, I think.
Yeah, so there's a free version, and then Pro version is $90 and has a lot of detail and multi-site and all of that. But there is a free version if you want to get started. But it was totally worth it for me, and I'm glad that I've been able to repurpose it now for my server.
Yeah. MAMP.info for MAMP. Not a great name, but
not a great name.
A great product.
A little elephant icon. It's cute.
Aww. Yeah.
Think about the elephants.
Think about the elephants. Andy Anako, pick of the week.
Slightly controversial pick. Now that I'm not going to recommend Ulysses again, but one of the signatures of 2023 is that I now have gone from, I should definitely give Ulysses another deep dive because there's a lot of new features, to this is now the center of all of my creative work, almost completely displacing Scrivener. I use Scrivener for some novels that I'm working on, but that's about it. And I always know when a certain note-taking app or writing app or whatever has reached that level of like on in Toy Story when Andy writes his name on the bottom of on one of the toys' feet. Okay, hey, I'm officially accepted. It's when I finally start to fine tune the editing environment to make it look exactly the way I want. And so I've been playing with different monospace fonts. I'm just like Jason. I used to do most of my writing in BB Edit, and sort of that's the environment that kind of puts my brain into, hey, I'm writing for duration, not just for fun. And so I came across a fork of Comic Sans called Comic Mono. And what I like, first of all, it's monospace, but it's fine-tuned to not look like Comic Sans so much as it looks a little bit like a friendlier version of Monaco, a friendlier version of these monospace terminal fonts that I normally wind up going with. And yeah, when you put it up at at 18 points, no, it doesn't look very good. But at text editing size, it looks pretty nice, and it's free.
Do you do the titles in Papyrus?
You know what?
Yeah, you're not serious people, are they? No.
No. It's, I mean, at least I'm not using Helvetica, man. Well, actually, I shouldn't throw shade at Helvetica either.
How
Helvetica's a very
dare
nice, sturdy. It's all about the character spacing.
It's
the
all
weighting,
about new.
and that sort of like,
Helvetica new. I mean, you know.
But you know what I'm talking about. Where what I like about the editing environment that that BB Edit threw me into is that it really, when you're just using Markdown for all your formatting, because I do need to throw some italics in there. Sometimes I do need to throw headers into there. It's nice to be able to say, I don't care. My mind gets distracted by, you know what? There's some space between the header and the following paragraph, but I'd like there to be a little bit more space between. Whereas if I'm just using a monospace font and just tagging as I go, I don't care. I just get to the words. But that isn't to say that you can't get something a little bit better than like a basic typewriter font for your terminal. And I don't know if I'm going to keep it, but I like it. And I will certainly never print this out or share this in a PDF with anybody who has to read it. But as someone who sometimes has to read like 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 words worth of stuff that I just read before like turning it to something that is going to be a PDF for other people to read, it's a little bit more pleasant than like Menlo was my previous default, and it's kind of a toss up between the two.
I actually like this a lot. Back. Yeah, Comic Mono
has a little something about it. Yeah. Again, just a little bit of difference.
Honestly, like the IBM Selectric font.
Like a little bit of like an orator.
Yeah. It doesn't look like what it doesn't look like is Comic Sans. It just looks like a jovial terminal font.
a little less of a terminal. Monaco, but not quite a tight ass.
Yeah.
Like Monaco if it dropped acid and spent some time in an ash rack.
I have installed it, and I'm going to make it be my default font for a while, just for fun. I like it. Comic.
Just don't tell people what it was derived from, or people like Alex will just like make you feel like you're supposed to be ashamed of it.
Sorry, man, Alex, you're so mean.
You got to poke holes in my rowboat, don't you, Alex? Every single time.
I'm
got to be the screen door in my submarine.
When you're talking about the impact of videos, anytime someone says Papyrus or Comic Sans, all I can think of is the Saturday Night Live skit. I can't. It's just completely embedded into my BIOS at this point.
Yeah, Comic Sans is pretty reprehensible, but Comic Mono, no, not so much. I think it's kind of cute.
We actually had a discussion in office hours about it with someone who works in typography, and she actually was talking about how readable Comic Sans is. I mean, that's what makes it. Yeah, it's actually a very readable font. That very specifically. So while a lot of people make fun of it, it actually has a certain power to it.
And it is a nerd font. It does support. I'm using it right now, and I like it. It supports the nerd font ligatures and things. So this is a good choice. I like it. I'll make it bigger so you can see it. Look at that's pretty. That's pretty. I think that looks nice. I'm going to use that from now on. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Andy. Good choice.
I made fun of it, but I've already installed it too.
It's not Comic Sans. It's pretty.
Yeah,
it looks like really Orator. Nice, you're right.
It's like Comic Sans once it's grown out of its awkward teens. It's no longer wearing the black trench coat. It's no longer shopping at Hot Topic. It's integrated its childhood into a very sturdy adulthood.
Yeah,
exactly.
Mr. Alex Lindsay, pick of the week.
So I was talking earlier about the little thing that I was doing in Keynote. Let me see if I can get this to. See, so this is what I was talking about before. Was this and the thing you want to know is that these images I all made in like a minute. So this is all in Midjourney. But this is the cool thing with Keynote is you go like this keeps on ticking, and then it goes like this, and then it just.
These are all Midjourney 5.2 generated.
Yeah, these are all. So my pick is Midjourney, and this is all.
Gorgeous.
Everything is fine, or it's all. Or this is 5.2 with a minion. You know.
Despicable. This is fine. So, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, 5.2 is out. It's pretty slick. You know, if we let me see if I can pop over to. This is the interface here. If you look at it here, one of the things you'll see now is this zoom out. So you can zoom out 1.5. You can do a custom zoom. You also can vary it a lot or a little. So if something's close but not quite right, you can do a subtle variance. Whereas you can do strong, which is kind of the normal one that they have out there. And you can build really fun things. So this is I think we were talking about a light seal earlier. So I put the light seal in, and you'll see me, all I did was type it in, and then I started zooming out and picking ones during the commercial breaks. And so I started doing that. And what I ended up with is, just to give you a sense of, and this was just during our commercial breaks, everybody has a hobby. And so this is mine. And so here you have this kind of infinite zoom I got to grab onto this. So just keep zooming in to our seal. So basically I started here, and now you'll see a little edge. I'd have to paint that out, but it's pretty close. It would take very little to fix it. This is what a lot of people are doing right now, is doing these zoom outs. But so as you start to zoom out,
that's wild.
These are just stacking these images on top of each other, and then it comes up with another seal. You're like,
it hallucinates.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like think of another seal. You pull out a little further. Oh, there's another seal. so keep on adding seals to it. But anyway, the point is that it's a really slick. For a lot of us who got a close up but really wanted something a little further back, or you didn't get the full. It gave you a waist up when you wanted the full body shot. All those things are now kind of doable, and its quality is way higher again. One thing that people are showing that I haven't gotten to work yet is the ability to do paint in and then have it actually just build something. This is new in Photoshop, or at least they showed it in Photoshop, where you can basically take a big marker and just say, this is green and this is blue, and then say, give me a valley, and it'll just it'll just build that for you. And they were showing that in Photoshop, and some people are saying, oh, that works in Midjourney too. I haven't got that to work yet, but 5.2 is, it's a huge, probably the biggest jump since 3 to 4. I mean, or 3 point whatever to 4. So it's a big jump forward. So it's worth checking out it's beautiful images. I mean, it's crazy.
I'll just try it again.
Yeah.
I haven't really gone deep dive on it for like about a year. So I think
it's come a long way.
Oh, it's photorealistic.
It's like a decade. Yeah. It's like I've
been playing a lot with the Photoshop infill feature, but though that's like, oh my goodness, this is the best kind of like exciting technology, the kind of technology that might get a lot of people scared because it's so easy to do cool things with it.
The cool thing is that you can use the Photoshop infill with Midjourney. So what you do is you build the image in Midjourney, but you want to change a couple things, and you just select it in Photoshop and say, put a screen here or put this here. And Photoshop will infill it'll take the Midjourney image, but infill the new thing that you asked for, but blend it into, the Midjourney thing that you started with. And so the two of them together is pretty
Give me a Midjourney tip. So I'm in our, we have a Midjourney channel in our Club Twit Discord. And I /settings to launch the Midjourney bot. Look at my settings here. I don't know how well you can see those, but
hold on,
I've got Midjourney 5.2 raw mode, right? Stylize, medium, low, high, very high. What do you like?
I leave it on medium, and then I'll only change it if I have to. Yeah. And then I leave the raw mode. I don't leave on all the time because it's a little bit more. It's a little bit more verbatim. So the reason when I use raw, I'm usually generating the prompt from ChatGPT.
Right.
So what we have I'll put in a thing that tells it what I want. Like in general, this is how to do it. And I got this from Ken Jordan, who's in Office Hours. And so Ken sent me this thing that is like this long description of how to do ChatGPT or how to do Midjourney for ChatGPT. So you set that up in the ChatGPT setting, and then you say what you want, and then it'll build out it builds out.
So it builds your
prompt. So when I do
that,
it builds the prompt.
Is that how you always do it? You do ChatGPT for the prompt? No.
Sometimes if I'm having trouble getting it done with my own prompts is when I use ChatGPT to see like, what will ChatGPT do with this? And so anyway, but the big thing is picking cameras and sensors tends to be really powerful. So,
what camera
that's the thing
you use?
I got a couple of them. It depends on what I'm shooting.
We've been using a lot of Alex's thumbnails. If you see the Windows Weekly thumbnail, it's Paul Thurrott on a dinosaur from last week. It was quite good. I liked it quite a bit.
It's great for thumbnails. I will say that it is just a killer. Let's see. I have a lot of A7S IIIs, that I use. I use that and do short depth of field. I have one it's underwater that I use, an EOS Rebel. It's like, and I steal these from other people. Like you see someone else, you see an image that you like, and you go, what are they doing? And then I copy their prompts. And I have in my Apple Notes, I have my cheat sheet, which is just all the things that created something that I liked, and I keep it there so that I can grab the pieces out of it. R8, but like a panoramic view captured by a Canon R8 400 millimeter f5 cinematic photography style, and then I so I put something in front of that, and then I put that in there, and I get an image, and I play with different ones, but like an D850 DSLR 105, with a 2.8 lens. I mean, now the interesting thing, and I haven't had time to do this in 5.2, there's a shorten command inside of Midjourney now where you can put your prompt in and say, shorten this, and it'll shorten it, but it'll also analyze it. It'll say, hey, this is what I actually paid attention to. So I'm learning, because we've always had this thing, like, I don't know if those terms actually mean anything, but within Midjourney, you see them a lot. So you put them in, and you end up with these really long prompts to try to define something. And now Midjourney will tell you, yeah, I'm not paying attention to any of that. These are the only things I was paying. This is what I took. Yeah. You gave me this big prompt, and I took these things out.
Want all that stuff. You just
so I think that there's a lot of things that we're learning. It's moving at a fairly frightening speed. No kidding. It's really it's an amazing and it's a lot of fun. And I use both ChatGPT and Midjourney every day. And I do a lot of presentations. And so to make my presentations much more fun, I use Midjourney all the time over a plain white background. I just make objects.
You like those plain white backgrounds, I know. Yeah.
Well, it's just that because I put it over, it makes it easy to put it over a Keynote document. Right. And then but you can have things appear and disappear, and it just looks like they belong there. And so I that's why I do it. It's just the easiest thing to keep. If you do it over a plain black background, by the way, it just becomes a really dark image. So it's not very, just very dark, and so that's why I don't do that.
So I tried the A7S III with the prompt, a typical Comic Sans user. Unfortunately, it saw the word comic and decided, forget the A7S III. I'm making this like a comic book.
Well, so yeah, add something like realistic to it, photoreal, realistic. Yeah. And say shot with A7S III. You don't want to just say A7S III. I'll just say shot with.
Shot with. Oh, good. Yeah. See, learning. This is fun. It is fun to play with. You can, if you are a member of Club Twit, go into our little Midjourney channel and start playing with that among many great channels in the Club Twit Discord.
And the most interesting thing is that I think Midjourney now is like 17 million users on Discord or something like that.
Amazing.
And it goes so fast. There's no conversation, or at least I haven't seen a lot. But just looking at images and going, oh, I really like what they did there, and taking them, and then I grab them and put them into somewhere. I've gotten to the point where my Midjourney cheat sheet in Notes has to become like a database. Like search for this because I have so many in there now. It's not as useful.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's nice to see what other people are doing. That was actually smart of them to make it a Discord channel instead of just a general server that anybody could use. I thought that was very clever.
Yeah, and they set it up so that the cost structure is different. Like people like me pay for private, so I don't like my stuff is all on my own, but everybody else is like feeding into that system all the time. Or if you're paying just a little bit, you're always feeding into that system. So it's a great way to learn.
Okay. I made it more realistic. It's still the same guy.
I know, but it's realistic. Hold on. He's still rendering. He's still rendering here.
It's more realistic, but it's
2009 hipster doofus.
Oh my gosh.
Typical Comic Sans
like
user.
The wide shot. You're like, and it's interesting that it did realistic. You want to do photo real.
Not realistic, but photo real.
Yeah. And you want to say Sony. You probably want to say a Sony A7S with 3 eyes. It's pretty like
he's actually holding an A7S III. No, it's a Canon. Never mind. That's pretty funny.
But you want to you kind of have to like you do learn when you prompt, whether you're prompting for ChatGPT or prompting for Midjourney. Like every word that you put in there matters. Like it because it's going to drive the whole.
Yeah. Well, this I think is a pretty good realistic image of a guy who might use Comic Sans at some point or another in his life.
What I'm loving about this generative AI chatbots and everything is that it really is almost exactly what artificial intelligence sort of like what science fiction told us artificial intelligence would be, like programming computers and using computers, where it's not so much writing code, it's knowing how to speak in natural language to the computer so that what you're doing is clear. Like remember the scene in the sequel to 2001 where Bob Balaban's character is is explaining to the backup computer of the backup version of Hal that I'm going to run some tests. But do you remember what happened to Hal? Like we'd like to figure out what happened to it. Like how do you think we should do that?
Yeah.
And trying to, so if I'm going to unplug you just to see what happens and hope that when I plug you back in, but if you ask the right way, the computer will completely be on board and help you do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
It's great.
And I think that, a lot of this we know is going to get a lot easier. Like everyone will be able to do it, and it'll be much more real language. But there's a kind of an adventure right now of creating stuff. And I will say, I don't use, other than my Keynote stuff, I don't use the images generally verbatim for anything that I work on. But what I do use it a lot for concept. And as we start getting these paint-in things where I can define where I want people and what I want them to look like, being able to just say, like, I just think that we're going to see a lot of pitch decks for a movie or a concept where I can just throw those, a lot of times you build something in Midjourney and you're like, I could build a whole movie around that, it's one of those, like the, let's see if I can find it here. Hold on.
You can make your kinematics this way.
Like this one, I was like, there's a movie there.
Yeah. There's something going on.
There's something going on, there's a movie
story
somewhere.
Yeah.
There's a story there that and so that's the kind of thing that you can, you come up with those concepts. Yeah, it's really cool.
Well, there's definitely a story in this photo, this Midjourney of a homeless podcaster shot with a Sony A7S.
You look like me. That's not fair. That's judgmental. I feel seen, called out.
I like number 4.
That's the one I'm upscaling. Yeah, here you go, number 4. This is your average.
Now do
street
zoom out.
podcaster. Look how good that
actually
is. Now, how do you zoom out? How do I do zoom out?
Okay, scroll down.
Yeah,
scroll down.
Oh, zoom out.
Just zoom out 2x.
2x.
Zoom out 2x.
Oh.
Yeah.
Look at that. There's just a button to do it. That's
so now cool. What it's going to do is it's going to infill. It's going to give you.
We can see the scene. And
you just keep on going if you want. And
so that's the original, and it's working.
Now it's waiting.
Oh, it's waiting. There's got busy now. All right. Well, I'll wait. That's pretty good though. I kind of like this image.
Yeah.
This is me in a couple of years, I think. Doing the show.
He's got a lot of electronics.
Yeah.
I think being homeless with that much electronics, he's a pretty geeky dude to be.
This is actually really cool because in the past they would have had kind of something that looked a little bit like headphones, but really clearly weren't. This has gotten much better in terms of the imagery that it's using. It's really interesting. Yeah.
Generally the right number of fingers now. So it's
oh yeah, they trained it on fingers, didn't they? Yeah.
Yeah, whatever they did, they were like, I don't know what else we're going to do, but the fingers are going to work. So
it's pretty amazing. Here's the let me do the upscale on the zoom out here so you can see it full size. I always have it do 4 images. Probably got that idea from you.
It always does it.
Yeah. By the way, Lisa said, I promised Lisa the show would be 90 minutes long. I said, oh, yeah, we don't have anything to talk about. And I'm only off by an hour. So I think it might be time to wrap this up. Yeah, it zoomed out great. Look at that. That's really interesting. Yeah. It really looks like a painting. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Alex Lindsay, if you want to know more about things like this and other things, officehours.global is the place to go. Man, every day there's something going on there. Very exciting. And I literally mean every day. It goes on with or without Alex. Broadcast graphics with presentation tools this week. Today.
Oh, that's what we did. Yeah. And we're talking about comms tomorrow, like just how comms work and everything else. Thursday, we have the technical director from Thursday Night Football. It's going to talk about
perfect. We were talking about that on Sunday. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so
remote sports.
Really cool.
Very cool. Officehours.global. You can participate if you want. There's a join us button, but you can also just watch it. It's on YouTube, but the best thing to do is just go to officehours.global. If you want to hire Alex, 090.media. Andy Anako will do his ninja impression on WGBH Boston. When?
I'm off this week, but I'm on next Thursday at 12:30. Go to WGBHnews.org to listen live or later.
And announcements coming soon.
I hope, yes.
For something. Thank you, Andrew. Great to see you. Jason Snell is at 6colors.com. He also does about 1,000 podcasts. If you go to $6.com, sixcolors.com/podcasts. I'm sorry, /Jason. You'll see everything he does. It's like the Jason universe.
Yes, connected.
We call it the JCU, the
JCU.
Jason Cinematic
Federated
Universe.
Jason.
Yeah.
Exactly. Lots of podcasts.
Anything you want to plug?
I don't know. There's a fun podcast called The Incomparable Game Show that I'm on sometimes.
Neat.
theincomparable.com/game show. We play games. It's a game show every 2 weeks. It's fun.
Neat. Like board games?
It's trivia or mind games or it's not board games so much because it's audio only, and board games kind of require the visuals, but it's lots of different party games kind of stuff. It's fun.
Very nice. The Incomparable.
And silly.
All of that at sixcolors.com/podcast. Thank you, Jason Snell. Thanks to all of you who joined us. We really appreciate your listening in. We do the show live. If you want to watch us do it live at live.twit.tv every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Taco Tuesday, as you might call it. Every Taco Tuesday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific. That is 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern. That is 1800 UTC at live.twit.tv. Watching live, chat live with us, irc.twit.tv. After the fact, of course, you can get on-demand versions of the show at our website, twit.tv/mbw. You can also, what else? You can also subscribe in your favorite podcast player. Just search for Mac Break Weekly. A little plug, we've got a big Thursday in the club coming up. The Terraformers is the book of the month with Stacey Higginbotham's book club from Annalee Newitz. Her new book, which I hear is very good. That'll be Thursday at 9 a.m.
Good book.
Yeah. Well, even better book, if you know Hugh Howey's Wool series, and you might if you watch the Silo series on Apple TV+. Hugh Howey joins Aunt Pruitt for a fireside chat this Thursday at 1 p.m. Fans of Silo will absolutely want to watch this, but make sure you... well, I don't know what they're going to do about spoilers. Probably should finish the show before you join us in the club on Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Last episode's Friday. Oh, that'll be a good time to do this. The day before the final episode of this season, because I'm pretty sure they got renewed for this one. There's a lot of Wool books. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Now, I am sorry to say you must get back to work because break time is over.
Oh, hey, that's a really nice iPhone you have there. You totally picked the right color. Hey, since you do use an iPhone and maybe use an iPad or an Apple Watch or an Apple TV, well, you should check out iOS Today. It's a show that I, Micah Sargent, and my co-host Rosemary Orchard host every Tuesday right here on the Twit Network. It covers all things iOS, tvOS, HomePodOS, watchOS, iPadOS. It's all the OSs that Apple has on offer, and we love to give you tips and tricks about making the most of those devices, checking out great apps and services, and answering your tech questions. I hope you check it out.